This is the GPL podcast, part of the Pull Tab Sports family.
I still have to say one of the better Don Lucia stories I heard was he was getting it at some, I think it was North Dakota, where the fans were giving it to him, and they were saying, like, how's your kid on the power play? He's terrible. And it's like, how do you even get that spot? And Don turns around and goes, I sleep with his mother.
Leo, how was your recruiting?
My recruiting, I probably had 76 D1 offers.
Now, here's Jupiter and Vigo. Good evening and welcome to the GPL podcast, episode number 279. Well, Viggs, not quite the weekend we imagined, but it wasn't terrible.
Not terrible. You know, they got the win and then they got to overtime. 3-on-3, not Bob Motzko's favorite style of hockey. And neither was the officiating during the third period either. So
the officiating wasn't good. I listened to the radio broadcast. Wally wasn't happy about it. I listened to the TV broadcast, and I know Pat wasn't too happy about it either. So let's bring Pat in here because what happened? Pat, there you are. Refereeing was not great this weekend.
Great to see both of you, as always.
Yeah.
What happened? Well, when you don't win draws, especially in your own end, and you don't possess the puck, you're chasing.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to my broadcast partner, Jim Rich, I said, right at the start of overtime, you better win this draw because if you don't, you will not have the puck. And, what did we see? Minnesota touched the puck once and then turned it over, and they made a great play and game over.
They did have one face-off where they could have, about halfway through what was played, they did a face-off, lost that face-off.
Yep.
And I was saying that to some people too. Yes, the refereeing for the last 10 minutes of the game, last third period and overtime was not great, but win a face-off. Come on, win a face-off.
And I think there's times on the 3-on-3 where you have to take, you got to know the situation, obviously, but when you have a chance, especially when a guy is facing the boards, you have to go. You have to get closer. You can't just let him, we're going to get it out of the zone. You got to force at some point, or else nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, you can't really play a zone, can you, V's? You kind of have to play kind of a little closer to one-on-one if you want to get the puck back.
Well, it is man-to-man defense, but I do think you have to identify situations where you still have teammates between you and the net, and you can take that chance, and you can maybe give up like that 3-on-2 opportunity, but you've got to take that chance when you have someone outside the dots and they're turned towards the boards and there's multiple layers of players that can help you. That's when you got to take that chance. And the Gophers have some players who are pretty good defenders, and they can win that battle.
And great sticks. But what upset me the most about the game was, I'll go back to some of the face-offs, and it bothers me when they lose so many and you give the team that one extra opportunity, that one chance. But it was 2 or 3. I think it was at the end of the game, right? When they won 2 draws in a row and didn't score, thank God. But, you've got to be better. You got to be better on that. And that's, if I have one concern. Now, if you look at the numbers throughout the game, pretty even on the draws.
I think they're really close to 50-50, but it's situational.
And you can't look at it like, in my opinion, can't look at it. Where are they winning them? Where are they losing them? How much time is on the clock? Are you up a goal? Are you down a goal? What are you doing? And so that part of their game bothered me the most all weekend.
Well, and Bob is called out specifically in penalty kill situations. His team is not very good on the draw.
No.
And so I think it's just amplified when you've got one less player to jump for that loose puck. They're not able to execute there. I think the numbers are like 40% were on their kill, whereas when their power play, when they have that extra guy out there to win those loose 50-50s off the draw, they're like 60%. So it's a big difference for Minnesota.
You know, and a big thing for me, guys, and I always used to do this when I took draws, is that I would know who I'm going up against, what his strengths are, what he's trying to do, and then counter that somehow. If I know a guy is, quicker than me, well, automatically I'm not going for the win. I'm going for the tie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna tie him up. If I know a guy's is gonna, I look where his stick is, and if it's positioned a little left, well, you know what? I'm gonna slap that stick, to the right, to my right, and then get the puck. So there's more to it than just going in there and trying to win. You got to know who you're up against, what they do, and how they do it, if you want to be a good face-off guy.
So an overtime loss that Saturday night, V's, but on Friday night, a completely different thing, especially when you look at the first period. They get down by 1 goal. They score 5 straight and pretty much take care of the game right there in the first period.
Pretty amazing period by the Gophers. Like, they were scoring goals in the ways you have to score goals. Players making plays to the net and just lots of confidence getting to space and converting and bearing. Like, there's no squeezing the carbon fiber too tight on Friday night. They came through and delivered. And I think so many Gopher fans are like, that's Gopher hockey right there. Why can't they do this every single night?
Yeah. And again, my opinion, I thought it was the best period of the season of any team in college hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can look back at the Michigan game. That first period was really good too, when they were up 3-0. But I thought it was good because every line was involved. I mean, Beckett Hendrickson was a freaking beast down low in that first period. And I can go on and name the guys. The D were getting involved in the offense, in the offensive zone. When they are moving like that, that's when they were that they're going, because their feet are moving and they're covering up and they're cycling. They're cycling on top. They're cycling down low, and when you do that, you get teams looking around like, where do I go? Who do I get? Who do I cover? And then what happens? They're standing.
Yep.
And so you make them look even worse. And so I just thought Minnesota, I thought they were, it was textbook in that first period.
And Viggs, not only do I think it was the best period of the season so far, it was also the best period on how they reacted to being negative. Obviously, they gave up the goal real quick. It was 1-0. They responded instantly, and the rest of the period, it was over.
It almost feels sometimes like this team, when they get prodded like that, they jump into action.
Poke the bear.
Yeah.
Yep.
If they get poked, they get excited. They're like, okay, now we got to bring the game to them. We got to be on our toes. We got to anticipate. It's some of the other games where it's kind of like a boring 10 minutes of hockey, where this team kind of has checked out at times. They're just like, we got to dump and chase tonight. Oh, we got to go do puck retrievals. Oh, they're going to trap us. Oh, I've spent 20 seconds defending. My shift's over. Yeah. Maybe I'm going to extend my shift chasing offense. But when they get poked, they're right into it.
And that's what irritated me about the Friday night game against Ohio State. It ended up being a 5-1 game, and it wasn't a 5-1 game. Minnesota, they take a penalty on the 5-minute major, which goes back to what you're saying, kind of, checked out, whatever. You don't do that. But then they give up 2 on the 5-minute major they took. And the 5-minute major they took was at the beginning of the third period. Okay. And and it was a bad penalty, and it was a good call. But when they started the period, they won the draw, they got it in the zone. I'm like, okay, it's 2-0. They get one here, they got a chance. And once that penalty happened, it was over. But so what I'm saying is, you avoid that, then you might have Ohio State back on their heels.
Well, you talk about the penalty kill, and obviously that 5-minute major in the Ohio State series just killed them.
Yep.
But this past weekend, Viggs, they went 3 for 3, killing penalties. For one thing, they only gave up 3 power plays the entire weekend. And a lot of speculations, I saw Gopher Game Stats put out stats about how much better they are when on the penalty kill when Thomas is playing. And look who returned this past weekend, Mr. Thomas.
The one thing I noticed that was a little bit different with Cal Thomas in the lineup on the penalty kill is more shot blocks and more missed nets. And so I think when he's in the lineup, he forces shooters to shoot anywhere other than on goal.
No doubt.
So there's something about that discipline and that courage that he brings to the lineup that changes the way the Gophers can kill. Because I didn't notice them, pressure more in the neutral zone and delay entries. I didn't notice them, pressure players at handoffs to the top of the zone. It looked like more just that tight structure, blocking shots, forcing pucks to miss the net.
And I watched you guys last week. I don't miss an episode, but you were talking about the penalty kill last week.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to call in and chime in, but
well, you got the link now. You can use the same link and come on anytime you want.
There's so many things that go in you guys know this, into a penalty kill, right? I mean, number one for me is win the draw on your own end. Okay. Mm-hmm. But number two, once you win the draw, you got to make the clear. And they've been poor at making the clears when they have control of pucks. Well, and so what do? You give a team another chance. Your goaltending's got to be good, right? Mm-hmm. You got to get in front of shots. You got to know when to pressure. So people ask, well, what's wrong with their penalty kill? Well, probably this tonight, and probably that another night, and and so I just think it's a combination of things. If you have a breakdown, whatever that breakdown is, good chance you're going to get scored on.
Well, you remember, Viggs, Jack Ramsey was saying that when he played, he had the same partner for 4 years on penalty kills. Familiarity with who you're playing with was huge.
Yep.
Yeah, when I talked to Mason Nevers about the penalty kill, that was one of the things he called out is, having so many guys hurt, not being able to practice very efficiently because of the limited numbers. They haven't been as clean on their reads and reading their teammates, and that's been an issue. And he thought, maybe now that everyone's healthy, they can practice a little bit more consistently and maybe have the same partners for forward pairs. That'll help their penalty kill unit. And, just like Pat said, getting clears, winning draws, that's important. But I think the continuity should help them going forward.
I'll tell you a quick story back, and I hate to go back to the days when I was playing because that was years and years ago. But Paul Broughton and I used to be partners, and we always our whole thought process was, okay, yeah, we don't want them to score, but our mindset was we're going to score. We're going to score shorthanded, and so we always had it that whenever we got the puck, one of the guys would go right to the middle of the ice and you would throw it there. And then you'd go in on your breakaway, you'd catch them. And the D knew, hey, we got it. And we got a clean shot at it. That's what we're doing. It wasn't just get the puck out of the zone. Let's try to make something happen. And, it was a fun way to go about killing a penalty.
I see Steve. There was some tweets earlier about goaltending, but we got Steve here right live. Pat's thoughts on goaltending going forward. Personally, Pat, I don't think Bob's ready to make that decision because I don't think either of the goalies have really leapt out. Erie might play one way, but it seems like the team plays different in front of them compared to Soulier. So I think it's still quite a bit up in the air.
Yeah, I think that I don't have any information other than the fact that I think they're just going to continue to split. There was only one time this year where Bob decided to go with Erie both nights, panned out. And I think when it gets down to that point, it's going to be a gut decision, how he's feeling that day. And that's how it'll go. I think both are playing well. I really do. No, yeah, they are different. Soulier is fabulous with the puck, by the way, handles the puck terrifically, really helps out the D, and so it is different, right? But again, Notre Dame had 5 shots on goal in the first period, right? Minnesota was clean. They got back. They moved the puck. They were sharp. And you know what? Their goalie didn't really get tested. And so when they're on their game and they're having the clean breakouts and all that stuff, and they're possessing the puck, you're in pretty good shape. I'm not worried about the goaltending.
What do you think, Viggs? We've talked about it a lot.
Well, it's funny because this last weekend, one night you're saying, I really think they got to go with Soulier, and then the next day you go, well, maybe not.
I was texting that to you.
Yeah.
You weren't the only one.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of Gopher fans out there who wish it was more clear who was the number one goalie, but I think both are just playing fine right now. And I think, Bob has always said, I pick starters, but I don't pick number one goalies. They pick themselves. I don't think either has really defined themselves as a number one goalie. They both had good games. They both had average games. I don't know how many bad games we've seen out of either goalie this year.
Yeah.
So
how many losses do the Gophers have?
4, 5?
I think it's 5, and 3 of them are an OT.
Yeah.
So
that's
pretty.
Are there
You've said that quite a few times,
percentages
Pat.
over? Are there save percentages over 90%?
Yes.
Okay. How many goals would you look back and say, oh, what a bad goal?
I would say that Notre Dame game where Aries played a little
shaky
at first.
Yeah.
Hold on. But he played a little shaky at first. But then Viggs even has said this in the past. Bob put him in the second night just to see how he would react, to see how he would, react to you kind of having a bad start to a game. How does he react the next game? So that's really the only one that kind of started out bad. Would you say, Pat?
His first loss of the year was against Ohio State. He was the only undefeated goalie in the country, and people want his head. I don't get it.
Yeah, you've been tweeting it. People say, and even after the one loss, you're like, he has one loss. He's 9-1 or something.
But I understand, like when analyzing this team, even when I'm doing games, you can nitpick every shift, right?
Yes.
You can nitpick and say, oh, why did he make that play? Why did he do this play? I'm talking about anybody. And, oh, he should have done this. Oh, what's he thinking? But, the bar is pretty high, and you have to look to find a lot of egregious mistakes that they make, and they're going to make them. And guess what? They're probably going to lose again. And guess what? Their goalie's probably going to have to steal one night. I mean, that's where we are. That's why it's so great, right?
Viggs, I think it's less about the goaltending maybe than the team in front of it not playing as consistently as we would like them to play.
Pat wants to jump in on this one so bad, I can tell.
Hold on. Go ahead, Viggs.
Well, I just think it's college hockey. Like, you're not going to be at 100% an entire season. You go into an empty Ohio State building and you got to play at 4:00. That, fans might say you should be able to get up for any game. That's a hard game where you got to bring your own juice and get going against an older, physical, good skating team that's at home, that doesn't have to worry about all that stuff and is used to playing in that building. You play for Minnesota, you're usually going to get good games from every team. You think those Notre Dame players didn't want to bring it on Saturday? Yeah. They had a huge crowd of family and friends in the building, and they got shown up on Friday. You're going to have those ups and downs in college hockey. And as frustrating it is for the fans, it's not a surprise to any of us that have watched it for a long time.
Go back to, well, there's a couple games I can go back to, but I'll use the Michigan State game, the game they lost up 3-1. Oh yeah, tired. We're all tired, right? And you do get tired, but whatever. But when you have the puck on your stick and you have an easy clear and you don't clear it, and they keep the puck in the zone for another 30 seconds, and you really get tired, well, they're going to score. Happened twice. It happened in another game. And I lost my brain for a second. Those are the things that you can't do later on in the year. Okay. And, but so, a lot of the mistakes or losses are due to not the other team, but what this team has done.
Yes. I would agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Viggs, any thoughts on the refereeing in the third period on Saturday?
I think as players, they have to recognize what's happening during the game and adjust and play through it. Because I saw players every once in a while, like they get hooked or they get held, and you could just see them kind of give up and look up or put their hands up in the air. You have to learn that sometimes you're not going to get any calls, and you have to play through it, and you have to play tougher.
Yeah.
And again, they put themselves in a 3-3 game. The refs didn't do that. You've got to play well enough that you don't leave it to chance for the officials. And at the end of the game, you can't have that attitude. It's wasted energy. You had control to score more goals. You had control to not give up so many goals. I understand that fans are frustrated and the coaches are frustrated and Pat's frustrated and Wally's frustrated. But the reality is you just need to score more goals.
Mm-hmm. You have, and to your point, Viggs, and I'll just say what you said. You have to recognize early in the game what his mindset is, right? Especially if one is let go early in the game, right? Well, then this guy's not calling. Let everybody on the bench know. Let's play through it, and let's go. So much of this game, guys, is right up here. Knowing how much time is on the clock, knowing the situation, knowing how the refs are calling the game, knowing, that their goalie's going down a lot. So let's go high, whatever the case may be. You got to think your way through this a little bit, and instead of just, it's our shift, we go. It's our shift, we go. And you got to understand. You got to find that little extra that is going to get you to the point that's going to lead you to a win.
And I also think on the flip side, you have to go, he's not calling things. Be more aggressive defensively.
Right.
Take more liberties with the other team. Be tougher. And, as Pat's talking about the things being in the game, I saw something this week about rules for players on the bench. What do you pay attention to on the bench? What are you watching during the game? It's easy to think of golden rules for forwards, golden rules for defensemen. I think any Minnesota hockey player has seen that around rinks. But I think what you pay attention to during the game matters, and good teams pick up on that stuff.
And I asked, in fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because early in the year, I don't know who I was talking to, one of the forwards. I said, as a line, do you guys talk on the bench? And you say, hey, I'm going to be free here, or, that D likes this, or, go to my side. If you dump it in my corner, I can get it. Do you guys have he says, and the guy answered, and the kid answered, sometimes. And I'm like, because I tell you what, my center, Rick Erdahl, he was probably one of the smartest guys out of the Minneapolis Conference, by the way, Washburn High. Was so smart. And you know what? He'd tell me something, and that was it. I do it, because more often than not, that's the way. He was the center of our line. He ran the line, and and he was the guy that was gonna, set us up, or whatever the case may be. But always had those conversations.
Interesting thoughts. I'm right there a lot of times, and it's hard for me to hear a lot of things, but I do hear things when, like, I do hear players like, "Hey, don't be goaded into a penalty if somebody takes something." I do hear a lot of that type of talk. Like, let's keep it going here, guys. It's that type of stuff. I'm not sure. It's
rah.
If I hear the offensive line, I hear the one line that's right next to me. I don't hear the other guys talking. So,
hey, I want to bring up is two guys that maybe not so much this weekend, but really two guys that are really starting to gel are Oliver Moore and Matthew Wood. Matthew Wood is reading off of Oliver Moore unbelievably well. Moore gets going with that speed of his, right? Goes in, cuts, and he waits.
Causes chaos in the meantime.
And Wood sneaks into that open area.
Uh-huh.
I mean, look how many chances Matthew Wood gets per game. It's out of this world.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing about Matthew Wood is he's almost kind of an acquired taste because it's his brain and it's his ability to slow the game down that makes him effective. And you think about why he got cut from the World Junior team for Canada. It's because he's not flashy and the coaches probably don't watch him all the time. So they don't see that skill set that he has. But the more you watch him at Minnesota, the more he impresses with being in the right spot, creating time and space, and creating scoring chances that are dangerous, not just shots on net.
And how about his ability in traffic? I'm like, what did you just do? How did you get through two guys, and the puck always finds a stick.
And he's very good at protecting the puck as well.
Yeah, well, exactly.
He does such a phenomenal job at protecting the puck.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just all right. But before we need to get on to Vigo's top 20 and a couple other topics I have listed here. But Vigs, we need to talk about Jimmy's. Had any dill dip recently?
I've been having dill dip like every week. I go down to my Cub Foods. It's right there when I walk in, and I've had it for all the big hockey games, all the big football games. We're getting ready for the Super Bowl. If you're putting together a platter of stuff, got to have some veggies, got to have the Jimmy's dill dip. They've got other stuff as well that you're looking for your parties. Got to have it. Jimmy's. Don't ya be messing with my dressing.
And, of course, we've got Lunch Bucket Hockey, but their social media is all over the place the last couple of weeks here, Vigs. They got a lot of new stuff.
Yeah, local guys who played pickup hockey, and they wanted to have this hardworking grit and grind apparel brand. Check them out on social media. They've got lots of cool stuff. They like to go with the black and white stuff that's kind of like your gritty hockey player. And, if you're looking for custom jerseys or just some apparel to wear around the rink, check out lunchbuckethockey.com. They're one of us.
And of course, we thank Lunch Bucket Hockey and Jimmy's for sponsoring the GPL podcast. Vigo's top 20 for this week.
What do you got, Vigs?
He's got a little swap of Boston College and Michigan State, which makes sense to me, Vigs. Tell us more about your top 20 this week.
I mean, Boston College is really putting together a very strong season. It looks like Hockey East might be the strongest conference in college hockey. You look at the top of the pairwise, they're dominating it. They could have 5-6 teams potentially make the tournament at this point. Maybe unlikely to happen, but it's possible. BC looks like the cream of that crop. They just had a nice weekend against Providence where they took care of business. Harvard, who's kind of had a good season for ECAC team. And now they've got BU coming up this weekend. That is probably must-watch hockey along with the Gophers and Michigan State.
I see Connecticut's a big jumper in the list. UMass down. New Hampshire's up quite a bit. And then St. Cloud getting swept again. The only thing that's keeping them up there right now is kind of their pairwise, isn't it, Vigs?
Yeah, I mean, they've had a lot of OT games, which kind of keeps them afloat a little bit pairwise.
What are they? What are they? 17 pairwise?
I think they're 22. So they're on the cusp here.
Yeah,
they've had some injury issues. Arizona State is a good team, so getting swept at ASU doesn't really hurt them
at home
as much.
At home.
Oh, at home, sorry.
Yeah.
North Dakota was just out in Arizona. So give me Pat.
And they split.
But anyway,
go ahead.
Get healthy weekend for St. Cloud here coming up. they still have a chance. They still have good games left on their schedule, but they're on the edge here. Brett Larson was talking about his team is close, and Brett knows a lot about hockey.
Yeah,
you got Wisconsin back on there 2 weeks.
I mean, hey, let's look at this in reality. Both North Dakota and St. Cloud, both can't win. One of them, well, they're both going to have to win the title, the tournament title, to get in.
And they're both near 500 too, Vigs.
Yeah.
Yeah. They need a good run going down. One of them's probably going to miss the tournament at this point. And can you believe NCHC is only going to have 3 teams?
Mm-hmm.
Arizona State, Denver, and
Western.
Western
looks like a number 1 seed. They're having a great season so far. I mean, they've been in my top 5 for weeks here.
I haven't seen them, but man, they just win.
Swept up in Grand Forks.
They're fun to watch. They're physical.
Really
they score goals. They've got good goaltending. They've got a fiery coach in Frischweiler. He's done a great job recruiting.
Really good.
He's new building coming. Good stuff there.
And then finally, I almost mentioned earlier, but Wisconsin is back in the top 20 for you, Vigs. Was it 6 out of their 8 losses or an overtime or something ridiculous? They're not that far off.
They're not that far off. And at the start of the year when they were losing games, they were still playing well. They just weren't putting the puck in the net. We've been giving Mike Hastings a little bit of hard time with his culture change there, maybe not coming through, but they were playing positive hockey through that stretch. They just weren't getting the goals. Now they've got a little bit of confidence back. Maybe that'll be the difference for them. It'll be a tough game when they play Minnesota here coming up.
How many Big Ten teams did you guys have going to the tournament at the beginning of the year?
I had 3.
I had 4.
Right now it is looking like 4, but
I thought at the start of the year, Minnesota, Michigan State, Michigan.
But one of them wasn't Ohio State.
I did not have Ohio State in there.
And now they're in pretty good shape.
They are. Only one home loss, don't they? That one loss was to Minnesota.
Yeah.
But their schedule isn't quite as good as everybody else.
That is what's hurting.
Cappy a hard time about that. They've got a couple quality wins now with Michigan and Minnesota, but they did have a little bit of a softer schedule than most. Although you could say the same about Minnesota. They haven't had the toughest schedule this year either.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, you would think if you schedule a UMD team, they're typically, they're down this year, right?
Yeah.
And Omaha, you expect them to be a better
Omaha
team.
down. They're down.
Yep.
But now they're playing well. They're in the top 4 in their league.
Keep winning. It helps Minnesota.
Crazy.
It is crazy. Oh, it's gonna be a fun, 2 months, guys. 1.5 months at least until these conferences start wrapping up. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, this last grind. What are there? 8 games left in the conference, if I'm correct.
Something along those lines, yeah.
Right? Yeah, Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Penn State. Right?
And Ohio State here.
Oh, 10 then.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah.
Without a week off,
Oh, no, they do have a week off. They do have a week off in the second weekend of February, I think it is, Vigs, or is it the first weekend of February?
Oh, I think you're right. Good.
They have a bye week in there.
Woo-hoo.
So that's not so bad.
No. But it's gonna be a grind.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's a fight for third place, right?
Is it a fight for second place, Vigs? Does Minnesota want to finish in first?
I think it's a fight to get a number 1 seed in the tournament. I know some of the coaches don't want to talk about it like that. But I see that as really important. If you can be one of the top 2 seeds in the pairwise, usually your first game is against a team that's not as skilled as the rest. And I think that's a big advantage. It can be a sleepwalk game where you're challenged by this older team, but usually they're not as skilled offensively as you are. And if you come ready to play, you're going to be fine. If you're the 4 seed, you're going to face a very good team.
who's 5 in the pairwise right now, Feeks? I know you know. That's why I
Maine?
asked.
I just threw it. I'm just guessing.
Western Michigan's 5.
Ooh,
Right there.
Like that's a darn good team.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And I think there's a big difference once you get past 11 and you're playing Arizona State or a UMass or a Quinnipiac. Like those are teams that you're not as nervous about as I think you are BU, Providence, Maine, Western, Denver, Minnesota. Yeah. It's a big difference there.
Yeah. Agreed.
So the easier game you get in that first round, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I kind of wanted to completely switch topics. I know Viggs and I have talked about it a little bit the last couple of weeks with Steve Johnson and his liver transplant, but boy, having you on is perfect, Pat, because you had a different organ transplant, but you know the exact boat that Steve is in right now and the struggle he's having, just the recovery and all that. And obviously the luck to be fortunate to get one so quickly. It's just so many things that come together. The community has come together. And boy, you have a definite perspective on this whole thing.
You know, I was really lucky too that I was able to find a living donor, which happened to be my brother. But there are over 100,000 people on the waiting list for a kidney, and it's really hard if you're on that list and you're waiting, you know, dialysis and the whole thing. But you know, it was great. And I just loved it. You know, when Steve called me like 2 or 3 weeks before, I pick up. I'm like, who's this? You know, I didn't have his number. He got my number somehow, but he just wanted to, and he didn't want to get off the phone. Just wanted to talk about, hey, you know, what's it going to be like? Here's my story, blah, blah, blah. I'm just waiting. I'm staying strong. And I'm like, well, you're saying everything I would tell you. You know, you got a great attitude, which you have to have a great attitude. And, you know, he was just, and then he in fact, he texted me the day that he got the transplant. He said, hey, I'm on my way. They called me. I'm on. I got to be there in 2.5 hours. And boom, you know, so, and he's such a great kid. Wow. You know, really a great kid. And so, you know, I just, I think I haven't talked to him. I haven't reached out in a few days, but I think he's doing pretty well. And you know, it's a month down there. You know, you got to go and get your blood checked every day and make sure. In fact, I don't know if you guys know that when I had mine, you know, I was feeling a lot of pain like 3 days later. I'm like, something's not right. Something's not right. I went back and the doc said, you know, just, you know, get through it. And then my surgeon came in because he wanted to see me. And he said, you're going to get a biopsy right now. Boom, went and got a biopsy, looked at the biopsy. He said, we're going back in. He said, I didn't connect it right. It happens 3 out of 10 times. So I had to have 2 surgeries in that when I was down there. But, you know, Mayo's is phenomenal and they were great. And, you know, but, you know, I'm very happy for Steve, as we all are.
And, you know, it's definitely not the end for him. It's going to be it's a recovery time. It's anti-rejection, either pills or infusions and things like that for the rest of his life.
Rest of your life.
Yeah. And you were a little older when it happened. Yeah, he's still in his 20s or around 30. So it's going to be a little bit longer, quite a bit longer for him.
Yeah, and but you know what? You know, he was younger too, and he's stronger and healthy, you know, and just so you know, he's in a good spot. He's in a good spot. So good for him.
I don't think Steve has ever had a problem with fitness. He's always just got that right attitude.
That picture right before he gets his transplant, he's got the guns
going
I know. And everything. I'm like,
you know, you're embarrassed. I told him, you're embarrassing me. Don't do that. You know. But no,
well, you can tell from the pictures, you know, quite a bit of jaundice going on because he was sick. But then you just see those guns there. I'm like, yikes. He probably could get out of surgery and kick our butts, Viggs.
Yeah, he's in pretty good shape. You know,
Yeah.
I think Jack would probably be hoping he could give him to Vail one of these years to play in that hockey event out there.
Yes. Yeah. But it's a great story, and like we've talked about, you know, they're up at the $96,000 around there. I keep putting it out every week. I just want to make sure.
And thank you, and thanks everybody.
Yes.
I mean, the hockey community is just you know, it's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. Any other sport, yeah, they're good in other sports, but this sport, I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's hopefully going to be a great story, Viggs. Okay, and you know, a story of survival. It's just spectacular.
Yeah.
Well, and just the attitude that Steve has through all this, and just the joy and passion for life that he has.
Yeah, he really does.
What's next?
Oh, he does. Yes.
But so hopefully everything just stays well with him, and it keeps progressing. He keeps getting better, and you know, technology's getting better, Pat. So hopefully he can take advantage of, you know, the new things coming along to help, you know, anti-rejection, things like that. And nothing but positivity towards him. And we're just going to keep pushing people to donate, because insurance is not always great for everyone.
No.
And they need help. It's just,
and Craig, you and I were talking earlier. It's very, very expensive to get a transplant.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great.
The more people can help, the better it will be for Steve. Okay, before we get to Michigan State, the big series this weekend, Viggs, you mentioned them when you were talking about Jimmy's. Where are you getting your Jimmy's from? Cub Foods.
Cub Foods. If you are down at the Quarry Cub, you might just see me down there as I go through and I pick out some fresh produce, some meats. You know, go through. You're looking for something for a recipe you have. Cub always has it. They've got great inventory. So when you're putting together your parties here for the football championships, for the big games here with the Gophers in Michigan State, think about Cub Foods. You know, they sponsor a lot of Minnesota sports. They're on the Gopher headsets. They sponsor a Pull Tab studio, and they sponsor the GPL podcast. Cub, they're one of us.
Definitely. And then, of course, finally, we've got State 1981 Dreams of a Dynasty, Viggs. Quite the book.
Yeah, if you're looking for something on high school hockey, check out this book. It's written about the state tournament from the South St. Paul perspective. You know, 21st tournament, never won a title. What if? And check out this book. It's on Amazon.com. You know, with Hockey Day Minnesota going this weekend, there's a lot of focus on high school hockey. This is a great way to get in the mood.
And of course, we thank that book, State 1981 Dreams of a Dynasty, and Cub Foods for sponsoring the GPL podcast. You know, Viggs, you mentioned there, Hockey Day, and there's a little alumni game coming up Friday evening at I think 5 or 5:30 in Shakopee. That has quite a few former players, and looks like fortunate enough I'll be able to get there and hopefully get some photos and maybe a little bit of video. Hockey Day is not just one day, Viggs.
Yeah, whole week there are games going on in Shakopee today. I saw at the Rosemount uniforms, they had the all-white look going with the breezer covers in white. Pretty good special uniform for them. You know, I do think the hockey games outside can be a little bit of a distraction, a little bit of a gimmick, but I mean, if you play in one, if you attend one and you know someone playing, it's a memory for a long time. And Hockey Day Minnesota does a great job with it. We've got great weather this week for outdoor hockey. Yes. As long as the wind doesn't pick up too much, it should be a fun experience for everybody involved. I remember when it was in Minneapolis, I had my kids, my association at the outdoor rinks the week leading up to it. We got the outdoor hockey in, we got the shovels, we had downtown and the, you know, cherry and the spoon in the background and stuff. It was just a fun memory that we'll probably never forget.
And you know who's playing in it this Saturday morning at 8:30?
I believe there's a hitting team.
Thank you very much.
There's a hitting team playing. Are you going to be there, Pat? Are you going to be in?
No. In fact, I was asked to be their honorary captain.
Oh, boy.
It just really unfortunate. I'm going to be
Well,
in
there's
East
a lot of
Lansing.
Michelettis, though. Is one of your brothers or siblings going to go?
One of my what? What?
True sibling rivalry right
Thank
there.
you. Thank
Love
you.
it.
No, so I really feel bad. I wish I could be there. But got to be in East Lansing. So,
Are
and
you gonna
him
be
and
able to
Joe, good team.
FaceTime the team and give them a little pregame?
Pep talk.
Well,
Pep talk?
I told their coach that I need a make-up date, and we decided on the state tournament once they beat Hermantown in the section final this year, and so we'll
That
see.
would be spectacular.
That
So
would be.
take out Hermantown.
That would be. So we'll
You got to
see.
do your Herb Brooks speech.
Yep, there you
that
go.
day.
I don't have one. Score more than the other team. Keep it simple.
Well, Viggs, like you mentioned, he will be in East Lansing for the big series between Minnesota and Michigan State. This time Minnesota's got a full bench, but I still see this as a split type of weekend with these two big teams of the Big Ten.
You know, it's always hard. I think these kind of games are easier for a team like Minnesota to get up for and play their best. You know, I look back at that series with Michigan State going into break. I thought Minnesota played pretty well in both games. They just kind of ran out of gas, and they didn't have the depth to get through a college hockey game where, every shift matters throughout the third period. And this weekend, especially after Saturday, I think the Gophers will be very focused for this series. And as the rust gets knocked off of August Falloon and Mason Nevers, maybe this is the moment where we see this team step it up to another level for 2 games and 120 minutes of hockey. It should be a great test for them. Michigan State is going to be the team that might be a little shorthanded this weekend.
Yeah.
As Red
Well, by the
Savage
way,
might
I don't
not be
know-
making it.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard, Red Savage might be out for quite some time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that, but he's out, and he's their captain. He's a big part of their team, of their penalty kill and such. So, but for me, I think advantage Minnesota going into East Lansing. I think they can play a little looser. I think sometimes teams get a little jumpy at home and try to do a little bit too much. But Augustine, they got to get to Augustine. They have to. I mean, he's the best goalie in the country. He's my pick for the Hobie. He's my pick for Player of the Year. I just think he's that good and deserves it. Because I think, you look at their decor. Their decor is fine. It's not great, and I think it's really important that Minnesota exploits their D this weekend. Up front, it's they got some guys who can score. They got some pretty good players. So, I'm hey, it's my first time to Munn Arena. First time. And
Really?
so-
Never played there as
never
a
played there. They were in the CCHA.
Yeah.
Them and Michigan at the time. So never been to Ann Arbor, never been to Munn. And so my only recollection of Munn was in 1976 when Pat Fippen scored in the third overtime to send Minnesota to Denver to go on and win the national championship.
Wow. That's a memory right there for you, Pat.
Yeah.
Chris asking, is Clark out with injury? I believe during media time today, he said he's going to be back. Is that what Bob said, Viggs?
Yep, Jimmy Clark's supposed to be back in the lineup. He's been playing through some things this year, so it's kind of one of those things where he's not probably going to be 100% for the rest of the year, but Bob says he's going to be in the lineup this weekend.
Okay. Be interesting to see who comes out.
You think they'll kind of keep stacking the lines, Viggs? I know they made that change a couple little weeks ago, but
Well, I don't understand stacking the line. I saw that text today or tweet. I'm like, well, I don't understand. I didn't.
Well, I would say that up until after that first game, maybe at Ohio State, it was very balanced, Viggs. What
It
you
still
say?
is.
I would say it's a little less balanced now. What do you think, Feegs?
I mean, I think there's definitely a line that's got more of a checking emphasis with Middlestat and Nevers.
And that was their best. That was their best line on Friday night.
But they're more of an energy line than a skill line, and you need a line that can play that way and gain momentum for you. And I'm not saying they're a bad line or anything like that. It's just they are not looking to score; they're looking to control play. And if a scoring chance comes, they're going to try to finish it. And so, like in the first period against Notre Dame on Friday, that was a dangerous line because they had gotten the momentum and they play a certain way. So I think that's what the fans see when they're saying stack the lines. And now that we're seeing Wood and Moore have that kind of chemistry that they're having, I think that's what fans are looking at when they look at, Snuggerud and Zemer having some chemistry. That's where they're looking.
Yeah, well, I guess that's fair. I wouldn't be afraid to put the Middlestead, Hendrickson, Nevers line out there. And every time they get out there, puck's in the offensive zone. Every time. Every time last weekend. It was really, really good. And I think they got 2 goals in that opening period, if I'm correct. I know Hendrickson got 2 assists. But anyway, nonetheless, hey, they're deep.
Yeah, I would say, yes, it's more of an energy.
And there again, we can nitpick until we're
but it's also one of those lines that you've been talking about that allows you to connect shift after shift.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's been a big thing for you. Even if when they were more balanced, maybe didn't have that checking line or trying to put a little more offense there, they weren't connecting as much. But now you think they might be able to connect shifts better with that energy line?
Yeah, and I think having Hughlin and Lamb together too, those are 2 players that also play the right way and can connect shifts together. So when you have, top 6 that everyone's talking about, those lines are so skilled and so talented that they're generating these offensive chances. But you have these 3rd and 4th lines that are playing really smart hockey and possession hockey and going to the ground game and tiring out other teams. I think that's what you're seeing out there. And so I get the perspective of stacking lines, but you've got 6 who play a certain way and 6 who maybe play a little bit different.
Yep.
And here's where I'll leave this stacked. If you were stacking lines, Brody Lamb wouldn't be on the 3rd line. Brody Lamb's one of the best players in the country. In my opinion.
And him on the power play right now is a X factor for this team. The way he wins pucks and the way he plays in front of the net and the way he goes to the corner when they're on the power play, I think he's one of the players that creates so many second chances for them that's going to allow them to be above 25% in the power play. If you don't have a guy on that, you're going to be under 25%.
It gives
be one and done all the time.
It gives Matthew Wood so much room over there to operate. And then he's got Snuggie, he's got Renzel, or he throws it down low to Moore. And, you got Lamb there, right? So, yeah, it's pretty good.
All right, well, give me your prediction then, Pat. What's your prediction for this weekend? How many points for Minnesota?
Well, you always put me on that spot.
I am.
I think I'm going to go 4 out of the 6.
Okay. I call that a positive weekend.
Yeah, they can't win. If it goes to a shootout, they lose. So, I mean, dump it in. Just dump in the corner. 1, 2, 3. That's it. No, I think Go ahead, Veeks.
Yeah, what are your picks, Veeks? What's your point picks for Minnesota this weekend?
I think they get the full 6 this week. The way this team is starting to put things together, I think a weekend like this allows them to really focus and flash. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they come out on Friday. But I really think the Gophers have the edge against Michigan State because Michigan State's defensive core isn't as strong. And I think Minnesota knows how to play that way, and there's enough talent to play against a good goalie. I think the one thing that could be an issue is if they get into a special teams where the Gophers don't get on the power play and Michigan State does. That could be a tough weekend.
Yeah.
But I just don't see that happening because the Gophers are possessing the puck so well right now.
Yep. That's
All right.
I can't disagree. How about
I mean,
you?
they're not
big
giving
guy?
up very many shots a game, and they're not giving up very many quality chances against.
Right.
Like their team defense has been really solid, even in these games where they're not coming out on top.
I'm going with 5 points this weekend. I think they get an overtime victory Friday night. It jacks them up to go for the sweep on Saturday.
Who's going to win that draw?
Who would you put out there for a key draw right now, Pat?
Probably Oliver Moore.
He has been getting a little better, Viggs.
He's getting better. You know, he's one of those players who studies.
He's built low. He's built low, and he's quick, and he's strong. You know, he's a little stronger. You know, I think Aaron is craftier, but Moore is just you know what? When you're strong, just go in and grind it. And I don't know.
And Moore's been taking a lot of the draws on the power plays, and they've been successful on the power play at winning draws.
Yeah.
But on the penalty kill that they've struggled the most.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Pat.
Hey, I know I got to catch my flight here in a little bit. I did the Viggs. I stayed up for you, so don't forget that. All right.
Thanks for coming on, and stay on for just a couple seconds. Hopefully, we'll get your video uploaded. We'll be good to go there. So
have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy hockey day. Enjoy. Oh, and remember, Friday night's game is on all of the iHeart stations, KFAN.
It's on
K-Talk.
It's on the Boomer KFAN. Yes,
on Friday.
Pat just let me know that I need to update the GPL schedule to show that it's going to be on KFAN 100.3.
Viggs, you better be tuning in.
I'll have the earbuds in.
All right. Well,
thanks, guys. Appreciate both of you.
Thanks for coming on, Pat.
Thanks.
That's going to do it for this episode of the GPL podcast. We'll be back next week with Todd Micheletti for the Big Bad Badger series. For those of you watching right now, stay tuned for overtime. For the rest of you, we'll see you next week on the GPL podcast. All right, Viggs, what is the beverage of the week?
With the Gophers headed to Michigan, I decided to go with a little Expedition Stout from Bell's. If you're into Imperial Stouts, this is one of the most accessible ones you can get out there. It's this one's 10.5%. This one is from 2021. It's a great beer to age if you just want to try aging for the first time. This is a great one to go to. Cheers, everyone. Cheers to you. I'm not sure if Pat's going to open. It just says uploading. It doesn't give me a percentage right now. So hopefully we can get Pat's stuff. He stepped away for a minute. That's quite all right. That's quite all right. But we're going to have another guest, though, Viggs, tonight. If he gets back from men's league. He's back from men's league. Okay. It looks like he's going to be joining us. So we've got Ben Holden coming on the show in just a few minutes. He says 2 minutes, he'll be there. So, So I've got kind of a John King-esque story while we wait for really Holden to join us. But today is actually my wife's birthday. Oh, really? You didn't tell us that. Are you in trouble by having a podcast right now? No, I'm in trouble for something else. And I think John King might relate to me on this a little bit. I'm terrible at picking gifts for my wife. and I don't know what it is, but like I'll buy something that I think she'll like. She'll open it, she'll have the good reaction, and then she'll kind of go, I'm gonna return it and get something else that I really want. And I'm like 0 for 6 or 7 of just like trying this. And so we were having a little text communication leading up to her birthday. I was like, hey, you know, there's like this nori sari like thing you can wear. It's like a blanket / skirt. And I texted it to her and I was like, you know, would this be something you'd like for your birthday? You can just tell me what you want and I'll go out and buy it for you. And she didn't reply to the text thread that we had going back and forth, but she did comment like the next day that she knows somebody who wears one. She's like, oh, that looks nice on her. And I was like, I don't think that's a like, yes, go out and buy it kind of response. And she thought, yeah, go ahead and buy it. And so we get to her birthday tonight, and I made like a fantastic chicken wild rice soup like she requested. We had
wild rice soup.
Nothing bundt cakes for her to have for dessert that she wanted. And we're opening gifts, and she's like, where's my gift? And I was like, well, you didn't really tell me what to get you like I asked. She's like, no, I did. And she's like, no, you didn't. And a little bit of a miscommunication. So she didn't get a gift from me. She got a gift from her parents and a gift from her sister, but not from me. And anyway, we're putting the kids down for bed. And I'm like, so do you want to get this, you know, blanket skirt thing? She's like, no, don't really want that anyway. So it's just like, so you didn't want me to get it for you, but you did. I don't know.
All right. Okay. Well, we're going to bring in Ben Holden. We'll see what he thinks about it. Ben, when you're buying for the lady, how is it difficult buying gifts for your lady?
I just give her cash. Then she can buy what the hell she wants.
How you doing, Ben?
I'm good, man. I got a little Minnesota rep going. Sorry, I'm all bad. I got a little War Road hat going for you guys.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, man. I got hockey here. Just had a game, but I got that one. So I love TJ's stuff, and
yeah,
I need to get an undershirt, you know, and be a little smarter. So I don't know that I'm going to go with the neck guard. I will tell you, I went to a full bubble about a month ago. And here's a Gopher tie for you, man. I'm bringing it tonight, boys.
Bring it.
I should go get it from my garage. I had Ryan Stoa's helmet in the 2 years we were together in Lake Erie that I wore with a half shield. I'm 54 years old. Most of my teeth in my upper bridge are all implants or crowns, unfortunately. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm an absolute
expensive
idiot.
Smile, Ben.
Yes.
Exactly. So so I went out and spent $90 on a new CCM bubble. So it's funny. I was on the bench a couple of weeks ago, and this guy I play with a lot, he goes, what's up with the bubble, dude? And I go, I can't risk a puck or a stick. And the guys in the league are good dudes. There's not a bunch of headhunters out there. We can all play. And I said, you know, I'm playing with less fear. And he goes, how is that any different? You're an animal when you played with a half shield. I said, I'm just not as like twitchy. Like if I go into a corner or in front of the net, I'm not as worried because I got the bubble now. So anyways.
Yeah, but all it takes is one little puck deflection off a stick up in your mouth.
Yup. And bam, I'm back at my dentist.
Yeah. I never played without a full. I think I had a cage. I had always played with a full cage. Viggs, you were only half shield.
Yeah, I tried going no shield at all for my first couple of years as an adult. And one time I crashed the net and I got a little scar here from it.
Yep.
And I remember I went to the emergency room. We were at Augsburg. So right across the street. And I'm with the doctor. And he's trying to show like this resident how to do stitches. Yeah. And he's like, well, I'll do the first one and then you can do the rest. And so he has her like numb me up with a needle. And as she's putting the needle in my head, I can just feel all the stuff dripping down my face. So none of the anesthetic is in my head. And he does the first one and hands the needle to her and walks out of the room. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And she's going through and she's really nervous and it hurts because none of the stuff stayed in there to give anesthesia or whatever. And I'm like, so, trying to make small talk. And she goes, yeah, this is the first time I've ever done stitches on a live human before.
What the hell?
And I just go, just keep going. Go faster, please. Please go faster.
Yep.
I think I got out of there about 1:56 and got one beer after the skate. So,
this was probably 20 years ago, and I was playing, and I again, I'm a bit of a dummy or whatever you want to call me, old school. I don't wear a mouth guard. I wasn't even wearing a mouth guard when I was playing with a half shield. I certainly don't wear one now, but with the bubble. But I was playing, I was turning, I had, cutting hard, calling for a pass. And this guy, he wasn't a very good skater. He couldn't get out of the way. And we hit, and my teeth went right into my lip because I flinched. So I'm just like, I just feel relieved. I don't want to get stitched there, Viggs. I don't want to have to go through that. It was worth $100 and having the guy at Pure Hockey throw it on my bucket for me. So I did take a picture that night, and I sent the Stoa helmet to Carmi. I said, give me Stoa's number. I want to send him a picture because this bucket's retired.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, play safe out there. So
how's the podcast going, man? I was giving Carmen some trouble this, in December. I'm like, you guys gotta get on StreamYard. You gotta get on StreamYard. Enough of the Zoom stuff. And looky there, you're on StreamYard now. You're going big production.
You and I gotta thank you, man. You've been a huge help, Craig, and really appreciate it. I got a couple other questions for you. I won't do it here on your show. I'll text you this weekend after the Gopher State game, maybe, if you're cool with that. But it's been you helped us out incredibly, man, and it's going good. We're appreciate you asking about it, and we both support each other. I think that's cool about our friendship, and you guys do what you do, and I've learned a lot from you, and learned a lot from watching your pod, and I love Carmi, but he's a player, man. He doesn't know anything about that stuff. I'm the TV guy. I'm the one that's supposed to know everything, right?
But
you're the pro and the talent.
Yeah, but everything new is a learning curve, no matter what.
It is, and I say that in good fun, and we're really enjoying it. It's everything I hoped it would be. We've had some great guests. I mean, now we got people coming to us. I mean, it's like Monique Lamoureux wants to come on. We just had her brother on, and Mario, and I got to give Carmi credit, man. He's had to interview two guys that were on the North Dakota team that ended his career as a Gopher. That takes some stones, man. So he was always a good teammate when I saw him in the time we were together in the American League, and so it's a lot of fun, man. We're plugging away, and we got a lot of great guests coming up. So thanks for asking, guys.
Carmen talks about North Dakota ended his career, but boy, I do remember Mr. Lamoureux being in net when Mr. Blake Wheeler chipped it over his shoulder. So and then him just sitting there.
I saw that from afar.
At least Carmi's got that.
Yeah, I mean, and it was funny because Cristo, him and Danny Cristo were closer. They grew up together, and he didn't. When Mario reached out to us, he's like, "Yeah, I don't know if you remember me." And Carmi's like, "Yeah, of course I remember you. You played at North Dakota, right?" And so
you keep having North Dakota guys on too. You're just killing them.
I mean, we got Paul Martin coming on Monday, so Paul will be a great guest. So we got some we're gonna have Micheletti on. We're gonna get Frank Mazzacco on. You guys know, in the time we've been friends, my admiration and my respect for Frank Mazzacco. He was absolutely in college hockey when I started in 2004, when I left local news to become a full-time play-by-play guy. He was the guy I watched in college. Obviously, there weren't a ton of guys on back then. Dave Strader was my guy here with the Red Wings. I was friends with Dave. He helped me a ton. But Frank he's on my Mount Rushmore of play-by-play guys, man. And that includes Bob Cole and Dave Strader. I don't know who the other one would be. But yeah, so he'd have some unbelievable stories. You guys know him really well.
And honestly, he is in when the game ends type of position now.
Exactly. He's transitioning
retired.
out. Yes.
He's retired. It's what do I do now? It's perfect. It's just perfect.
And that's the premise for those that are watching that don't know. It's called, Craig just gave us a shout. I have the Twitter handle on my my name there. We have Instagram and all the stuff that, you know, we got to have to build this thing. And, you know, it's funny because like Mike Ratchuk, former Spartan guy, 07 title team at State, him and Carmi were together and we're together at USA. And they got talking about Patrick Kane. I mean, Carmi skated with Patrick Kane, man. Like that's pretty freaking cool, right? And it's sometimes we both get kind of lost in the hockey talk and the stories, you know, because of the people we've had on. But at the end of the day, you know, that's our goal. And yeah, Frank does. You're right, Craig. He fits it 100%, man. His game ended. His shift is over.
Yes.
So
yeah, it totally fits, Viggs. You know, luckily I did see him a couple weeks ago, Viggs. He came out to Maxwell's after one of the games, and we got to see him. And I think he's loving retirement, Viggs. I think he likes the peace and quiet.
Yeah, he just kind of felt like it was time.
Yeah,
he wasn't as into the game prep anymore, which I think to be good at that job, you have to put so much effort in to be ready and have good, you know, tidbits to share and good stories and anecdotes. And he just knew it was time that, you know, he enjoyed the game, enjoyed the people, but that work aspect of it wasn't as enjoyable as it was earlier. And so he just knew. And I'm sure, you know, seeing his family grow up now and getting to spend that time is probably more valuable to him. And he's got tons of great stories, though. You know, I think anytime you talk about hockey, the people are unique. You know, as we talk about Steve Johnson and this liver transplant and all the support he's getting, or you talk to these guys about their alumni get-togethers. You know, Jack Ramsey talking about going to the summer cabin with all the old teammates, or you talk to Pat O'Leary about his group with that title team and the, you know, the bar trips that they take with the trophy every once in a while when they get their hands on it again. You know, that's what makes the game so special.
You're right. I totally agree, man. That's what I love about it. You know, this is my 22nd year. I've been fortunate enough to do college hockey. And I mean, I'll do it till they lock the building and don't want me anymore, man. I don't care if I'm 70, man. It's what I have for hockey in my life now, guys. And, you know, it's games, and that's okay. I have lots of other things going, but, you know, it's games like Saturday, man, that like even last week, I mean, the game wasn't, and for me being a Michigan guy, Michigan State, I grew up on that. I didn't grow up on, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, you don't like Ohio, or do you hate Ohio State? And I'll be like, no, I don't hate them. I'm not a Michigan fan. I'm more of a Spartan. I'll be honest. I like both, but at the end of the day, you know, it's pointing in my head, I'm going to take State. That's where I grew up. That's what I knew. And, you know, I got a lot of great friends at both places. But my point is, like, games like Saturday, that's why I'm so stoked, man. I tell these players, I tell the players sometimes, I'm like, we're excited too, man. This is a big deal for us, you know, and to be able to call a top 4 matchup, you know, this weekend. The only downside, I wish we were doing both games. I'm sure there's a lot of people watching your podcast that agree with me.
Yeah.
But those are above my pay grade. I go where I'm assigned, but those are above my pay grade.
And honestly, you know, we've talked a lot to Cappy a lot. There's like there's a lot of big wrestling thing Friday night. And you know what? Big Ten's going to do what's best for Big Ten.
Absolutely.
It's going to get bigger ratings. And that's just life.
We need a Big Ten network too, like ESPN did. They have 18 schools now. Like there's so much content. Let's get another channel.
You're preaching to the choir. I just buy the BTN Plus because I love watching all the games. You know, if I'm not watching the Gopher game, or, you know, like the Gopher game is like at a 5:00 game and there's a game later that night, I could throw it up on BTN Plus and maybe have a couple games going on my computer while I'm watching the Gopher game. Something like that. I love being able to do that.
Yeah.
But, you know, you do have the older crowds, Vigs, that they don't even know what streaming is. They want to go to their cable station. And honestly, that's a legit beef.
Ben, I'm curious, you know, being in the TV industry, what can we do to improve the product where hockey gets bigger ratings? Like, we know the game, we know the people, but I just think, you know, there's more to do. You know, I watch a lot of golf, and there's a lot of talk about what the PGA Tour can do to improve the game and improve the broadcast. You know, NFL's talked about what they do that makes the game so, you know, such a draw. I mean, we just saw the college football playoff, which just had huge money and huge ratings.
what are we missing in college hockey?
Yeah, it's a great question. I just think we need maybe collectively one entity that could air games. I mean, I'm going to go back to Mazzacco, the show that him and Jim Rich used to do. I watched it religiously. My last 2 years of high school were 88 and 89. Like, we need something like that. And I don't know what you do with the ratings. I just look, I mean, it was like last weekend, the Lions played, they kicked off at 8:15. You know, our game was originally a 6 o'clock game, but you didn't know back when the schedule was done that the Lions were going to play in the playoffs that night. And here's my point. Hockey people are going to watch. Yeah. And to your point, you know, in this day and age, we can watch 4 things, right? People are going to watch, and people that cared about that game last Saturday watched. Maybe not so much the Michigan fans because they weren't very good, but nevertheless, people watched. They weren't good that night. But I don't know the answer to that, Viggs. I wish I had a better answer, but I just think, you know, I'm working a lot in rugby now too, as you guys probably know. Mm-hmm. And that's a sport in our country that we're trying to grow and build. And we got some big things coming for this year. I can't say exactly what they are, but it has to do with television. And it's a big step for the sport of rugby in the United States and for Major League Rugby. I'll leave it at that. And when I can post stuff on social, I will, for those that might care about it. But we just need to keep pushing it, man. We just need to keep guys like you doing your pod, man. It's a quality show. People can get a lot from it. You have great guests on. So I just think we need to do that. But it'd be cool if like Amazon could do like a package and come in and just you need the money to do it. I think ultimately, Viggs, is really the answer that I'm going to give you on that.
Well, one thing I think is a little goofy, and I'm with the fans on this. Okay, I buy the BTN Plus package. I'm paying to see, you know, the non-TV games.
Yeah.
But when it's on TV, I have to go to the Fox Sports app to see it. And I can't just go stream it like I would a BTN Plus game.
So you don't have BTN over the air then?
Well, a lot of people might not have that.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
But, you know, they're like, I'm paying for BTN Plus, however many bucks it is a year. I should be able to get those televised games too. I wish there'd be a little bit of change in that. Obviously, nothing you can do about, but
no, and it's a valid point. And like, look at the NCHC when their games are on CBS, and it was that way all the years I was there. Nothing's changed. You can't watch them on the app.
Really?
So like, I guess like it's kind of like I hear a lot of discussion with rugby. And rugby purists and people that really have been around the sport forever, they talk about we need to get rid of the paywalls. We need to make it easier to access. You know, they complain about having to watch. I did a couple matches right here in my studio in November from France for World Rugby. And some people had to pay for that depending on where they were in the world. I mean, you can't give everything for free. I get there's money and they have to pay for the streaming and the technical stuff, but go ahead.
No, I'm with you on that. I think just people are like, you know, I pay for it. I should be able to see it. And Corey did leave a comment. He goes, it will show up on BTN Plus later. So you can watch it.
It does. You can't watch it live.
Yeah, you can't watch it live.
Yeah.
I think that's just the goofiness. It'd be nice to be like, hey, let's have one app. I shouldn't have to go. I know Fox owns part of BTN, but it's like, why?
Yeah, they own it.
Put it on BTN, or you know, if it's a BTN broadcast, put it on the stream, or maybe you have to verify you have a BTN, whatever. I'm just trying to think, just a little more consistency.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to go to 2 channels. I mean, I think they're going to have to.
With unless schools, they may have to. Yeah,
I just think they're going to have to. I don't know if that helps us get more hockey on. I don't know the answer to that. But again, I just think us as hockey people, you guys, me, anybody in our sport, man, just keep pushing it out there, man. Just keep sharing the love and in the great sport that it is, man. That's all I keep trying to do.
What are your thoughts, Viggs?
I just think like consistently putting out a product is helping. Like if they can figure out a way to do like appearances on the big show for Cappy, you know, when he does the little segments where he's talking about the weekend, at least you can get that consistently, like Wednesdays with Cappy or something like that. And then he and Pizzo break it down. or CBS Sports Network had Ben talk with someone every Thursday or something like that, and you had some collaboration between the different leagues to try to put out consistent product. So not only do the talent get to keep talking about their sport throughout the year, but they do it on a consistent basis, and everybody can kind of partner together a little bit. It would be fun to see some of the leagues step in and say, like, hey, let's have some feature non-conference games that we can feature on a weekly basis. College Hockey Inc. has worked with TSN to try to get the product in Canada on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
I wish they could figure out a way to do that in the U.S.
Well, NHL Network.
NHL Network.
Perfect.
If they could do a weekly game, that would be great.
Yeah.
Even if it's like a simulcast where they broadcast it on NHL Network and BTN or NESN or CBS Sports Network or NCHC TV, and you just did a simulcast, I think that would help grow the game if you just think outside the box a little bit and have a consistent product that people can rely on.
All right. I'm voting for you to be the commissioner of college hockey, because that's what I think we need to make something like that happen. I mean, if Fred Pletch were on here, he could tell you all about what the CCHA did back. Oh man, probably. Well, when Anastas took over as commissioner, Tom was an unbelievable commissioner, man. He was so good. That was the best league in college hockey, man. I was my first 9 years of college. Sorry, I know. I forget where I am.
You kind of forget where you are.
I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to stand by it.
Well, here's what I'd say. Midwest Sports Channel. Before it was FSN.
Frank
knew what they were doing.
Yes.
15 years before anyone else.
Yes.
They were broadcasting all the Gopher games.
Yep.
These schools didn't have their own TV. They didn't do their own TV. So they were just letting at Midwest Sports Channel come into North Dakota.
Comcast,
go into
where I worked.
Yeah, they would let them come right in and tell them, come on in, televise.
Yeah.
So they almost had that monopoly. They become FS, Fox, Fox Sports North, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they just continue this. They're always doing the WCHA Final Five. They kind of blocked the marketing out because it was a regional network. It worked perfectly.
They had a producer who knew what he was doing.
They had many producers that knew what
that
they were
helps.
doing.
Probably Pat O'Connor.
You
guys know Pat?
I'm not familiar with him.
He does like I think he does, excuse me. He does a ton of the games at the state high school tournament. He's a producer director.
Okay.
He's a Minnesota guy.
Yeah.
And that's who you need. But you got to become the commissioner, man. Let's go.
But in the mid 2000s, when it was the height of the Final Five, and FSN broadcasting Gopher hockey, there's a producer for the Chicago White Sox right now named Chris Withers. Oh, I kept doing thumbs up. It's like showing up. Chris Withers would. Look at
this guy.
Chris Withers would. He would be the producer of the Gopher hockey broadcast.
Yeah.
He would sit in our live chat and just observe what people are saying live on the broadcast.
Yeah.
And he was like taking tips. Sometimes they would show that behind the net view for too long, and people would say, "Get off that! We're not seeing it." And things would change, and he would take questions from people in the chat. He put questions up on the screen so the Wooger could answer questions that people were asking in our chat. But then the leagues broke up. Things changed. Everyone's took control of their own TV. So that's when it just went all over the place. So somebody like an FSN you can't just go to North Dakota. You can't just go to Duluth or whatever it may be. So things just changed. And it kind of they just lost that ability to kind of control everything.
Well, I think college hockey has become pretty provincial. Like you have your Big Ten that does the Big Ten. You have the NCHC that is very NCHC focused. CCHA, all these different entities. Flow Hockey kind of came in, and there was some disruption there with how you could watch games and access games with CCHA. And it's just there's a lot of regionalization of a sport that should make sense to collaborate with each other and try to grow the game. As much as people get after the Big Ten and SEC with college football right now, that is one hell of a product that they just put on this last month. Yeah. And if college hockey could collaborate a little more effectively, it would help their game, but it's going to take some sacrifice and some compromise and, maybe some
money.
Low ego, high output, and some money. But I don't think the money is going to be there right away. You're going to have to be patient.
It's not. That's part of the problem. I mean, there's just some of these schools. I mean, you saw what happened to AIC. I mean, and I hate to say it, but I don't think that's the last school you're going to see that happen to.
No.
These small schools barely survive. It's sad, but I really do, and I'm being serious. We need a commissioner. We need it. We need a commissioner to bring it all together, to bring the commissioners of the conferences together. That's what we need.
Well,
that would be step one.
Here's our guy, Jared Klein. You know him well.
Oh.
Does Michigan State have a local channel that picks up games, or do they only do BTN stuff?
Nope, and that's amazing. Like Freddie and I should be doing games every weekend. Mm-hmm. Like the years when you were talking about, those years in the 2000s, I was doing, that's where I was working, was for Comcast Sportsnet. I was doing 50 to 60 college games a year, guys. Mm-hmm. I was doing games at Michigan State, Notre Dame's 2.5 hours for me. I go to Bowling Green, Western. We did a ton of games at West. I was doing 5 schools, and I loved it. And I did that for 5 years and went through the American League. And I'm like, man, looking back, I probably shouldn't have, but it all changed anyway. Right. So made the right choice then, but it's, I think something does have to change. And I think that we can make it change. It's,
well, like you said, Viggs, it became very provincial. Everyone wants to make their own money.
Right.
And then you see how it affects everybody. You used to work a lot more. You used to be on like CBS, and then they start cutting and they start doing less people because we got to show more basketball. We got to show more of this. Yep. Yep. You've seen how BTN has become very regional. You and Pletch that kind of tend to stick to the Michigan area.
We don't leave the mitten much, guys.
Yeah. Cappy's kind of put here and there, but a lot of times Cappy's calling with Jason Ross Jr.
He's a studio guy in Chicago.
From the studio.
He's never done a game at Michigan. Never.
Well, he's afraid to go there. I'm going to hear about that one from Cappy.
You will.
But then you've got Dan Kelly and Ben Clymer doing kind of the Minnesota, Wisconsin. So it's become almost very regional. Yeah. And the thing is, obviously, you want to work as much as possible, but
absolutely,
we love all the voices the Big Ten has. We got some great voices here. I think Jason Ross Jr. has really picked up. He's picked up the hockey game really well. You've got Dan Kelly. We've got you. We've had Chris Foster's in the past, who is Mr. Everything. He was great. Yeah. I think we've been really lucky in the Big Ten to have all these great announcers.
Appreciate that. I mean, I love going to Michigan State and Michigan, and I do, man. Those are places that are really near and dear to my heart. I'm sure you guys, Mariucci, I don't know, high school rink or whatever, but it's like feng shui, man. It's like your happy place. It's Happy Gilmore, man. Like go to your happy place. It makes me happy when I'm in those places. I can walk into either building and look at the ice and remember a goal from 12 years ago. What happened?
Well, you were here for one of those big Michigan games, weren't you? For a semifinal or final?
I did the championship in 22 at Minnesota with Michigan.
Nuts.
Nyes almost came back. Remember? I mean, I'm like, one of the things they tell us as play-by-plays is never give up on a game. Never. No, seriously, don't give up on the game. Don't lose your energy. Don't, just strategy, keep, reiterate. And that was a game that tested me that way. Because you're I think it was a 3-goal game with minute and a half left. Mm-hmm. And Nyes gets 2 and there's 18, 20 seconds, whatever it was left. And he was a hell of a player, man. I still love watching him.
Oh,
man. Yeah. He's an unbelievable hockey player.
Oh yeah. It's definitely fun. Definitely fun.
So I do think there's something too, when you have the national crew, when you're watching a football game, that's Tony Romo or Greg Olson or now Tom Brady calling the game, there's a little bit more to it.
I don't like him.
Of course you don't.
Yeah. But there's a little bit more to it. And I think when you have that personality to your game, that can be something special to have. And I kind of wish college hockey had some of that as opposed to so much of the regionalization. I think that's what makes this sport a little bit tough.
Okay, well, one interesting thing, though.
More work.
One interesting thing. I have a half brother that lives in Dallas, Texas, and every once in a while he'll just sends me a text. Hey, I'm watching you guys right now. He's not a hockey guy, but he's watching it because he knows I love it.
That's cool. See, that's growing it.
Yes, and last weekend I am in the photo box between the benches, starting the game between Minnesota and Notre Dame, first period. Right before it starts, I get a text from my half brother asking me, why does Minnesota Duluth have the same colors as University of Minnesota? He asked me that because he was watching the CC Duluth game like the night before. I think he was watching it the night before. So he was asking me, I'm like, you're watching the other game.
Yeah.
And, I explained it to him, probably University of Minnesota, but he'll once in a while say, yeah, I saw you guys on TV. Or he'll say, I saw you on TV or something like that. With his bright hair. And if I'm shooting in a certain spot, I get texts. Oh, I saw you on TV because you can't miss my bright head. But
should glow, man.
My half brother is watching from Dallas, Texas, random college hockey games, and I love
it. Love it.
So
it's good, man.
I got some relatives that actually, when we were in Tampa, they bought tickets. The Frozen Four.
Cool.
The championship game obviously didn't go well for the Gophers, but they bought tickets for that game and went to the game.
St. Louis, baby. Is Snuggerud going to pack the suitcase or the Spartans going to win it all, boys? That's the question.
Is this a title preview weekend then coming up, Ben?
Sure.
Is this what you got?
Whatever you want, man.
Heartbreak for Minnesota and St. Louis. Leave their hearts
I'm not
in
saying
St.
that.
Louis.
Viggs picked Michigan State for 6 points. Minnesota 6 points over Michigan State. He makes a sweep.
Wow. All right.
I know.
I'm going to say 4 of 6 that's how it's going to go.
4. Okay.
One team's going to win. One team's going to get the extra point. That's my prediction.
I admit I'm not watching Sparty super, super close, but a couple games I've seen them, they have not gotten pressured in their own zone like they did when I saw them play BC at the start of the year. When they played BC at the start of the year, that puck was in Sparty's end for a long time.
A lot of new parts then.
Pretty well.
Yep.
How have they grown over the season?
They're just connected. I mean, like I said, right there, like they had a lot of new parts. They played at Lake State the weekend before. And their guys are playing. Like, he'll start Tanner Kelly, Tiernan Shouty, and Tommy Monisto. I mean, they are just a pain in the ass to play against. I mean, they really are. And then you got, the guy leading the country in points over the Gopher by 3, Snuggerud and Howard, playing with Stramel. Stramel's a monster, man. That guy has just come into it. And Russell, he's a pest, man. He digs pucks. He makes plays. They got some people, man. They don't have the skill Minnesota has. Few do. You guys know. I mean, BC, BU. I mean, Michigan doesn't have that much skill like they normally do. So
but this is the time of year where Michigan starts to get stronger and stronger.
It is.
They have been doing that.
It is. And I said to Cappy on the way to the rink tonight. I said, I think Wisconsin's getting 4 or 6 points this weekend. They have to. They have to if they want to continue to be a legitimate team that's a top 4 team in this conference. They really do. This is a big weekend for them.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I'm just interested to see Sparty have to defend under pressure a lot more than they typically do. Because that's, I think, a difference between like your elite teams and your average teams. And you can defend, you can hold your structure, you can be under pressure for a long period of time, and then you can still close out plays when you have a chance to do that and transition to your offense. And then you can go on offense for a little bit. And I think one of the things that separates Minnesota from other teams is their trouble comes from maybe getting beat in a one-off play or making a mistake, you take a bad penalty, and then giving up a goal on the power play. But for the most part, like, this is a team that doesn't give up many grade A's and has the puck a lot. And I got a text from a Brad S. He said, I'm laughing when you guys are talking about the fans' frustrations about Minnesota's inconsistency. Minnesota is having as good of a season you'll ever see in the NCAA these days. A team could go 35-0 would mean college hockey isn't that good or deep, but it is.
Is that, wait, you said Brad S?
Brad S.
Is that from Schloss?
It's Brad S. It's Brad S. Ben. It's always good when you have the godfather of college hockey listening to the pod, but
that's very good, man. He's the best at what he does.
He's the best.
He is.
I'll send you a link if you want to come on the show, Brad. Come on. Send them the link, Veeks. Send them the link.
Veeks, I just saw this up here. You sent it to me like 20 minutes ago. So Steve Ryan, NRFL managing director, I don't know him.
Okay, I played college football with him at St. Olaf, and he's been working to grow the game for rugby.
Oh, nice.
I don't know, at least a decade. And he's always doing events and things. He's very active on LinkedIn.
All right. I'll look him up,
game.
Man.
He was a heck of an athlete. He was an all-conference football player and baseball player at D3.
Was he catcher?
No, he's outfield.
Outfield. That was my next.
And our signal for one of his plays in our 2-minute drill was toss up a ball and hitting a home run and watching it go because we'd send him on the go route for the home run.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
So when we've had you on other podcasts, Ben, you've been in another room, but now you've got a nice little room here. Tell us about your setup. Obviously, the big Wings jersey. Got a lot of artwork back there and photos. What you got going here?
Well, just a little sampling of some of my favorites. It's my feng shui, boys. So it's
it is.
I can give you a little tour. So my favorite hockey player, Steve Yzerman. Loved him, grew up watching him, idolized him. Actually, that's my favorite. My son Luke. That was in Westlake, Ohio. The best picture I ever took without my face in it, that's Jake Feely and myself at West Point with a rainbow and the leaves. Like, it looks like a painting. State winning it all in 07. Picture of Yost up there. Gretzky. Original Sports Illustrated, signed by Jim Craig.
Nice.
So, yeah, I got a few things in there.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, just trying to make it look better. And
nice.
The Chara poster, this was my son's bedroom. That was on his door, so I just kept it up.
Nice.
So
I've gone with colors. I love
yours looks like a lounge, man. Look at that.
Well,
that's sick, dude.
One thing, well, let me see if I can bring it up here. Give me a second here. I think I can.
Yeah, it looks good, man.
So
oh, wow.
65, I've got the 65-inch TV over there.
Solid.
So it's my man cave / office / podcasting studio.
That's awesome, dude.
And so let me see if I can get this to do. Let me see. Of course, now it's not doing it. Follow instructions.
Is that a light on the
Oh,
wall?
hold on. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Look at that right there.
There he is.
How's it
Yeah,
going, man?
baby. Schloss.
Oh, I wish there was a North Dakota game this year, but
Hell yeah.
it's great to have you on, man.
What's up, guys?
You must be bored if you're watching us today.
Chatting some puck, bud.
It's a week off for me. I'm just hanging out, listening in, and yeah, it's laughing at you guys discussing.
Well, I think
What were
they
you
have been
laughing about?
inconsistent at times. Don't you think, Viggs?
What's that?
Don't you think Minnesota's been inconsistent at times?
Oh,
Well, I think we have a tendency to nitpick a team we watch so closely. Like, I think with any team, I always, listen to Minnesota Wild fans. Like, they just go after everything. And maybe they're right because the Wild are in a little bit of a swoon now. But, like, they had the second best record in the NHL or the best record in the NHL. Like, they're playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the Gophers' big picture. Like, this is a great team. They're almost a lock for a number one seed at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good things too to it, but I think we're just so hurt as Minnesota fans, as we saw with our Vikings finish their season. We're ready to be hurt again.
They're like they've lost like 5 games and they've got hot goalied in like 3 of them. Like,
look at Schloss defending him.
Right?
Schloss, you're always fair.
I mean, that's
you're
right.
always
Love
fair,
it.
Schloss.
That's
like
you're
I'm
right,
like
though.
the
I agree
losses
with you.
the losses that they've had are not ones where you're like, oh, that's really concerning. Okay, they outshot Omaha by 30 and they lost.
Yeah,
that happens. Like
in
and
overtime.
The other thing I thought, like college hockey, there's so many good players and good teams. You are going to have ups and downs throughout a game, no matter how good you are. The best teams are going to go through ebbs and flows in games. Other teams have good players too. I just think the seasons that Minnesota, Michigan State, Boston College have had are, if you're, I understand the nitpicking, but they're having a really good year. And if there's some fans that aren't enjoying this year, like then you're just not going to enjoy college hockey very often.
I think we have a lot of fans like that in Minnesota and North Dakota.
Yeah, that you do. Absolutely. I do think there are some people that think you're going to win every game every night. And I don't know. I think part of the weird part too is if you ask these people at the start of the season, what would be a really good record this year? And they'll throw it out and they'll say what, 8, 9, 10 losses. And then the first loss comes and it's like, this is the worst team I've ever seen. They have no heart.
Yep.
But anyways,
I think every postseason that the Gophers have lost, like there's a fire Bob thread somewhere.
I mean, it's sports these days, right? Like that's just, I mean, I just watched the national championship game 2 nights ago or whatever. And the coach that won it was a guy that everyone wanted fired like 3 weeks ago. Like it's this day and age, right?
It's crazy. He's lost 10 games. And I'll be honest, living where I live, obviously in the state of Michigan, and I told the guys earlier, Schloss, I grew up on Michigan State, so I wasn't a Michigan, Ohio State guy. But it's now, that game doesn't mean absolutely anything because you can lose that game. It means something to Ohio State, but in the big picture, they won a national title with 2 losses and smoked everyone. So,
but I would say, Schloss, your situation in Grand Forks, they are ruthless. And I know that we had Todd Bolesky on not too long ago when he said the following, and he's not far from being true. Boy, if North Dakota hasn't won every game, fire the coach.
Dave Haxtell was fired 32 times.
That's probably an accurate count.
He's not wrong, Brad.
He might have undershot, actually. he's being kind.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I tell people I've covered North Dakota for 20 years, and 18 of them they've wanted the coach fired. So, it's kind of funny. They, when I started, it was, they wanted Dave Haxtell gone and Brad and Dean Blaze back, and then they want Brad Berry out and Dave Haxtell back, and I assume there will be some time when I'm still covering the team when they're going to want the next guy fired and Brad Berry back, and it seems to be like a thing, like bring back this guy, I don't know. Sports.
Oh, what you got? Oh, hold on there, Big. Show us what you got. Look at that.
It's a special old granddad 16-year bourbon. I figure when we have a show like this with this kind of talent on here, why not break up the
nice.
Very nice.
Have one for me, buddy.
Schloss, I had some chat back and forth a couple months ago. When is Minnesota coming to Grand Forks? Because Viggs was showing me a contract with UMD the same weekend you thought Minnesota was playing North Dakota. Which is it? And we figured that out.
I should have double checked, but I'm pretty sure the one that I had is right. They might have changed that or something. But I think it's what is it here? Let me bring it up. I got it on the.
It's October.
It's October. Is it the 17th and 18th? It's
17th and 18th. And Viggs was showing me. I think he showed me a contract that was supposed to be that weekend, but maybe it's been moved, Viggs?
I would think Brad would have the most up-to-date information. I just get my freedom of information after
17, 18,
when I get them. I think when the contracts are signed, Brad gets a copy. He's CC'd on the agreements.
He's in on everything.
He's in on it, so I have to dig for mine.
You know, I'm shooting off those public record requests. I love to do that.
That's what Biggs does.
It's well known. I think when I was posting financial reporting today about Gopher athletics, there were a couple people in athletics who were just like, Viggs knows too much about this place. But the financial reporting stuff is always interesting. And, you know, you look at Minnesota, they're making more money than they've ever made before. And it's good to be a member of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So next season, I've got October 17 and 18 in Grand Forks. The following year, 26-27, October 23rd and 24th at Mariucci. So both times students should be at both places, not Thanksgiving weekends games.
Nice.
So early season matchups.
I think we're going to have to come up there again next October there, Schloss.
We'll take you guys out to Half Brothers again, maybe.
Or Olive Garden.
Oh yeah, you guys haven't been there to the Olive Garden?
We have not been to the Olive
I'm good with Half Brothers. I'm ready to go back there again. So, and what's the barrel? Brick and Barrel?
Yeah, Brick and Barley. Oh yeah, we
Brick
went
and
there
Barley.
too, didn't we?
Yeah, we went there too.
Yeah.
We heard some great karaoke there that you can only hear in Grand Forks.
Nice.
Oof. You gotta, it probably does well for business because you got to have a few drinks if you're going to listen to
that.
Brad, do you have any thoughts on our discussion about how to grow the college hockey game? I was talking about how the game is so provincial. Yeah. I think it would benefit from some cooperation from the different leagues that try to work together and grow the game. I know how hard that is. We fight so hard to publicize the campus site regional idea, but not a lot of movement from anyone to embrace that outside of David Carl and us, maybe.
I mean, I think there are a lot of little things. I don't know if there's any one big thing that would help. Obviously, we're in agreement that I think having the regionals on home sites and just exposing more people to what we actually see on Fridays and Saturdays and what an unbelievable atmosphere is. I think when you watch NHL playoffs, that's what hooks people, right? You're seeing the atmosphere in the buildings. You're like, oh man, this is actually unbelievable. This is great. I can't turn away. I think we would see that a little more with college hockey. I do think sometimes we would see some of these smaller schools host, and it would expose communities, and people would have memories forever of going to that, game at Lake State or Ferris or whatever, and you have fans for life. I think that's a little thing you can do. I do hear a lot of complaints about how if you want to watch a lot of college hockey games, you have to subscribe to 5 different things. You have to do Flow, ESPN Plus, Big Ten, and CHG. It's really hard to
Peacock. It's sometimes for Notre Dame too.
That's a challenge for people. So I do think I've heard that. I don't know how you actually make that happen because everyone's making money on their platforms, and that might be really difficult. But would it help? I think so.
And I know, Viggs, you and I have been pretty big fans of what Peacock does too, because their streams are high quality. The delay is short. And I'm here in my office here. It's in full surround sound when I've had games at Notre Dame this year. Never seen that in a regular college hockey game anywhere else.
Yeah, Peacock's got a great product. Schloss, you remind me of why the NHL is so great, because of the playoffs and the atmosphere. That's another reason why I don't think we'll get any coaches on board with this, but a 3-game series in the NCAA tournament to build up animosity and have elimination games would just be outstanding for everybody. And we talk about major, junior, and college hockey. Major junior has multi-game series as they get through their playoffs and stuff. Why can't we do that in college hockey? It would be so entertaining. The rivalries would grow. The competition would be lot of fun to watch. You know, could you imagine like a Saturday night where you've got 3 elimination games in college hockey, or a Sunday? Like people would love that stuff.
Yeah,
that's why I should be commissioner.
Yeah, Biggs, you're going to be the commissioner.
That's a great idea.
I love it. I've got very small groups who want me to be the commissioner of college hockey or a regent at the University of Minnesota. It's just fun to have the sport.
I would love to see more, of that, even in like the Big Ten. We do the one weekend. Why not do a second weekend of best 2 out of 3? Since they're not, they're not going to big arenas, and this is the last year of the NCHC at the X, and you're going back to arenas too. But I think that's going to be it's going to be great, because you're going to have. Can't you imagine those, like the Grand Forks championship game or something like it? That's going to be nuts.
Mm-hmm.
St. Cloud. St. Cloud's been a little quiet in their crowds. That would be a very difficult place to play in an NCHC championship game. Duluth. I mean, I think they made the right decision, even though, yes, it's nice to be on one place, but it's a bright future there.
Just what I've seen from the other leagues that have done it, the atmospheres, no matter where it's been. I think the first time it was done was Michigan Tech hosted it was the WCHA at the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing a video of fans like lined up down the hallway and everything in the atmosphere and in the McKinnis, and was like, you know what? We never actually see college hockey at its peak, because once they get to the playoffs, we go to these neutral sites. Like we always went to and the Final Five was wonderful. That was amazing, but we never see this home atmosphere at its very peak. Like the NHL, we get to see it. We never, ever see it in college hockey. And I think what the Big Ten and the CCHA have proved is no matter where you go, these crowds are, I saw RIT last year just had this unreal atmosphere when RIT was hosting. And, I think it would even be up a step if it was an NCAA tournament from what, you guys have seen the Big Ten championship games, and, guess what? It doesn't guarantee that team's going to win. Michigan's coming to Mariucci and won some of those games. Like, it just means it's going to be an awesome atmosphere for everybody.
And then you look at last year, Ben, you've got Michigan State winning in overtime on home ice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to ask, were you at Munn for that one, Ben?
What's that?
Were you at Munn for that one?
No, I did. No? I wasn't. I did the CCHA the night before, and came home and watched it, and then I had to drive to Indy for rugby the next day. So I didn't want anything to do with traveling anymore. But yeah, it's, think back to the Big Ten. Playing at Joe Louis, nobody went at the X. Mm-mm. They put them on campus to change that. It's so much better. I don't know. Aside from money, I don't know why it hasn't happened. Probably money and the length of these contracts with the NCAA are probably the issues.
And I think everyone has these visions of what the Final Five was. Like, oh, that was so great. Like, let's do that. And then it's just not quite that. The NCHC so far it's survived. But when you look at adding Arizona State into the league, it is one step away from a disastrous championship game. Like right now, ASU and Western are in first place. Are the top 2 teams. Mm-hmm. What happens if ASU and Western play the X for the championship game?
It's going to look like the Big Ten the first few
years. It is
years.
going to be terrible. Yeah. And it's a shame that they wouldn't get to play that game at Lawson or
Love
up
that
in,
place.
Can you imagine Lawson for a championship game?
Oh, I can. Yeah. It's banging, man. It's banging, boys.
And then you're going to say, well, you could play in front of 500 people in a 19,000 seat building, or you could play at Lawson. Like, it's just,
or at Mullet.
Or Mullet would be unreal.
Like,
any place would be. Any place in the league.
Absolutely.
Do you know how many people would want to travel to Mullet Arena for a championship game too?
Well, I know how many people wanted to travel for a regular season game there 2 weeks ago here. So
tough getting a flight, eh?
Oh boy.
I love it.
Well, it got shot down recently, and
I will say there were more. It's progressing. There are more people open to the idea than 10 years ago when this was first started to push. It's still got a long way to go, though.
And honestly, the regional situation this year looks good in the West and probably the East as well. I mean, you look at it right now, Minnesota's lining up at Fargo. You've got Michigan State at Toledo.
Going back to St. Louis,
Denver loves to travel. They will be happy to go to Allentown, and then you stick BC and up and wherever they're playing this year in the East.
Probably in Worcester.
Yeah, it's a good situation, Vigs.
But I just think like last year, just because it works out with the right programs making it, doesn't mean you're doing the right format. And
Schloss knows that after being in St. Louis last year.
And I think Brad and David Carl talked about this. Like, it's financially beneficial for the NCAA to look at these campus sites. You could make more money by having these games at 8 different buildings. And if you did a best of 3, that's even more money for the NCAA tournament to split out. I just think there's so many benefits to it. If we get enough coaching turnover, like we're starting to see, Jeff Jackson stepping down and Bob Daniels stepping down and Mike Schaefer stepping down. Like, we're seeing some turnover in the coaching staffs. If we can get enough younger, different voices in here that embrace this opportunity, it's going to be good for the game.
Here's the other problem when it's looking good. We are always one step away from disaster. So look at what the bracket would be right now. Who would Minnesota be playing first round in Fargo? I mean, we're looking at
Mankato, Quinnipiac, maybe?
Quinnipiac, Lowell, Arizona State. Those are most likely not Mankato if they follow the seeding.
Okay.
Look at who the 2 and 3 seeds are. We're looking at for a 3-6. We're looking at Providence, Ohio State, UConn. None of these teams can drive. So let's say Minnesota loses first round. You have a disaster in the region final. You have Quinnipiac against UConn. You're always sitting there holding your breath. Can these teams? I remember the year someone played out west and it worked because BU played Cornell in the final a couple of years ago. Well, the other teams there were like Western Michigan and I can't remember who else. Maybe it was Denver. So you were that close to Western Michigan and Denver playing in a regional final in New Hampshire or wherever it was. Nobody's going to be there. So we're every year at some point, you're going to have one of these that happens and no one's there. And we go through this again. And it's
or like when St. Cloud played Ferris at Excel and there were like 2,000 people there. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not a great atmosphere. There's no reason why you play that game at Excel when you can't even fill half the lower bowl. And you've got a local team in it in St. Cloud. And the tickets are $90 to get in because it's in an NHL building. That doesn't make any sense.
Nope.
I watched Harvard play Mankato a couple of years ago in the first round in Albany. I could count the people there. You were at that one too, Ben.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you could count. It was, and this is the thing that's unfortunate. Like Harvard doesn't make the tournament every year. This is a team that finally made the tournament. It is going to be the biggest game that this group of players play in their college career. And their biggest game, there's 80 people there.
Maybe.
That's, and we didn't sit back and say, this can never happen again. Like the biggest game they played in their college career was at 80 people were at. Mankato played the week before in the CCHA title game in a packed building, wild atmosphere, and then they go the next week and nobody's there. It's like, what are we doing? I don't know.
Okay. How different was you were at the Final Five with Blake Wheeler, Minnesota wins in overtime. How different was the Pepsi Center the next week when the same two teams went to, played again?
Yeah.
How different was it?
Yeah. I mean,
it was completely different.
Yeah. And that was by today's standards, that would be a good crowd in the regional.
Mm-hmm.
They had 10,000 people at that one, but when it's a 19,000 seat building, that doesn't seem good. And when you played in front of 19,000 7 days ago,
that's a letdown.
Yeah,
it's a letdown.
And the people who are arguing against this are disingenuous.
Oh man. I hope Woden's not watching right now.
I think that when you're out east, it's different because it's not quite the same disaster it is for these Western teams.
Yeah.
But still, you
had Minnesota and Western Michigan playing in a regional final out east.
Yeah.
Well, not many people were there for that one.
No, but they didn't have to watch their own teams play in front of nobody, I guess. I don't know. I still think what would push it over the edge, and who knows, maybe it'll happen this year.
A couple failures. We need some failures. We do.
What I think is if a BC team gets, let's say the Gophers drop to a 2 seed, which they're not going to, but let's just say they are for argument's sake, and BC or BU gets sent to Fargo first round, and UND sneaks in as a 4 seed, and they go there and they lose first round, which absolutely could happen. They're going to be saying that was not fair at all. We're the number 1 overall seed or whatever, number 1 seed, and we get stuck. This is what we got. We had to play a road game. And then we'd say, this is what Western teams have dealt with for 20 years. But I think that, and we almost had it 2 years ago. North Dakota was very close to winning the tournament and getting in, and they would have played that Quinnipiac team first round, and Quinnipiac maybe doesn't have the pull that the Boston College AD would have or so, and but like if they came there in Fargo first round and lost, you would see people say that was not right, and they'd be right. But
we can keep preaching, but like you said, you need some bad things to happen. You need some of those disasters, Brad, in order for any possible change to happen. And if it means a top seed losing, let's say a BC loses out east or something, and there's a bunch of other Western teams in that bracket.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've got nobody there.
Goose egg.
And we're going to it's going to happen. It's going to keep happening. I mean, I remember when I first started writing these columns, it was the regional we are all at in Grand Rapids. Nodak played Yale to go to the Frozen Four, and nobody was there. It was the smallest crowd they played in front of 7 years. And I wrote a column saying this is ridiculous. Biggest game of the year, smallest crowd in 7 years to watch a Nodak game. But then everyone said, there's other ways to fix it. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's 12 years now, and you haven't fixed it. You had 12 years. And if you can't fix it then, I don't want to hear, well, we can do these other things to fix it. You had 12 years.
Yeah. Jack Ramsey making a series. Make a series.
I'm just trying to get the home sites first. I think my first column was 2 3-game series, one in the regional, one in the super regional, and then single game Frozen Fours. That was my first proposal. Now I'm just like, let's just get the first thing done with. Then we can, then let's move on.
But once you see how great it is, then you expand it, just like you did with the college football playoff NCAA.
You'd make so much more money if you had a 3-game series. Like, man.
And isn't the NCAA hockey tournament one of the few tournaments that makes money for the NCAA? Because we know that the NCAA is not making money off of football, because that's not NCAA. That's college football. That's all the schools get the money. Yeah. So their big thing is men's basketball, women's basketball, and the lowly men's hockey tournament makes money, don't they?
Mm-hmm. And there was a former assistant AD at Penn State that went through and did projected financials of all these different models. And the one that we have talked about with home regionals, he kind of gave a high and a low on what would, worst case scenario teams that get, whatever and things like that. And I mean, on average, it would, make somewhere around $1.4 million more by having it at home sites is what he projected. So they are leaving money on the table for that. So,
and I mean, for like a small college hockey program, once that gets divided up and spun out, that's probably like 4 guaranteed games per program. You know what I mean? Like LIU comes out and plays Wisconsin, they get $50,000 for playing that series. Well, now all of a sudden they get $50,000 from the NCAA just for this campus site weekend happening. That's good for college hockey to grow these smaller programs. Even when scheduling is as hard as it is for all these schools, you build up this revenue base, and maybe it makes it easier for AIC to stay alive if they can count on an NCAA guarantee coming to them every year.
I see Andrew Carlson. I've lost track how many times Mankato's been sent out east as number 1 seed. You know what?
Yep.
They could host.
Yep.
They could put the money in. You could host the Sioux Falls if you want, or Fargo. You could host wherever you want.
But it's such a risk for these smaller schools to be host because of the guarantee that the NCAA forces upon them. It's just not a great model for those teams, especially when we have the risk for all these regionals, like Brad brings up. If a team that's local loses, all of a sudden your championship game is not very good.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's problematic out west compared to east is if you look at Minnesota produces more college hockey players than any state. It's got how many D1 teams now? 6. As many as as you'll find. Guess what state has been shut out from hosting regionals? It's been like a decade since the state of
Michigan, isn't it?
Well, Minnesota.
Well, yeah.
When's the last time Minnesota? Because there's no buildings you can host in outside the X. They're all the Massachusetts has all these AHL venues that you're able to host out east. I should say, not just Massachusetts. They play in AHL in New Hampshire. They play, in Albany, and they have these venues. There aren't venues in Minnesota. By this system, you have shut out the biggest state that produces college hockey and has college hockey teams because all you have is the X, which we know doesn't work. So you can't. It's been a decade since the state of Minnesota has had a regional hockey game.
They owe us the Frozen Four here.
They do owe Detroit a Frozen Four.
They owe us one.
They do.
I'm surprised
the points are valid, but they owe us one.
I thought they were going to put one on the back end there because just throw them in there. Then all of a sudden, what is it? It's Washington and Chicago got it instead.
You could say that the ticket sales were concerning for 2020 Detroit, and that's probably why they decided to not do it. I think it would have been a fun event. I've been to that building, the new one. It's a great building.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is looking at the future regional sites in 2028, Fargo and Sioux Falls are hosting that year.
Yeah.
True Western regionals.
Hey Ben, do you think if the Red Wings get good again, that generates enough hockey fans in Detroit to get a Frozen Four back? Because I know one of the things when the WCHA Final Five first came to Excel, part of the base for people who bought tickets were wild season ticket holders who could get their seats for the Final Five. And then as that event grew and grew, like it just became St. Patrick's Day party for all of college hockey out west. But I think if Detroit, if the Red Wings kind of come back into prominence, does that make it easier for them to have a Frozen Four again?
I think so. And the CCHA tournament was like that. It wasn't as big as the Final Five, but it was when Michigan and Michigan State, they were both good in the 90s, into the 2000s. So they had a good 15-year run there where it was pretty good rivalry. And that building was always full of Joe Louis. I don't know the internal workings. Like, I don't know, the Red Wings might have fallen out with college hockey. I don't think they have a partnership with the Big Ten. So the CCHA was done really well. I'd mentioned Tom earlier and asked this, and kind of jumped around there, but like he did such an unbelievable job. And you were talking earlier too about, the TV stuff, and that was something Tom did. Tom got our game on all over Canada. It was on Leafs TV, those CCHA games. Mm-hmm. TSN came in telling you got to be the commissioner, but like that was big, and they need that. They need to somehow bring that connection back. Like Freddie and I have the game down at Caesars on the 8th with Michigan and Michigan State, and it'll be the biggest attended game of the year in college hockey. It'll be sold out because they're both good again. Now, you could get some swings and misses like, Schloss has mentioned with the home site or the neutral site, but they got lucky on that tournament because Michigan and Michigan State were so good for so long, and it worked. And it can work again, but I don't think that's going to happen now. I like it the way it is. I like having the game on campus. The fans, the program, the players, they deserve that. They deserve to play, like Schloss said, the biggest game of their career in front of the best crowd they can possibly have in the best setting. They've earned that. So,
yeah. I can't remember if there was like the Minnesota rule, but they would have like the evening game on Friday every year if they were in it, just because it was so good for the league for attendance.
Yeah, they draw.
I remember coaches complaining about it. Sometimes they would have the shorter turnaround or whatever from that, but it was good for the league.
Yeah, they're the 9:00 game in the semifinal, long as they're hosting. Presume they will be. And the 6:30 game is either wherever it is, probably at State in all likelihood. So
I remember Don used to say he didn't like that rule.
Hey, sometimes you got to sacrifice for the good of the whole. That's what
right.
I want to bring to college hockey.
That's right. Bring it, baby. Let's go. I'm starting the petition. You got some good ideas, man. You and Schloss run this thing, man. Let's go.
Oh.
Schloss, we just got to get Carl
manager.
and Fenton. Carl and Fenton have got to join us in this.
Yeah.
In Fenton, Michigan?
Josh Fenton with the Summit League, formerly of the NCHC.
Make another college hockey conference.
Let's just make it a national deal.
Joining the show. Yeah, exactly. That's what's going to happen with college football. There's only going to be a couple conferences, right? So, somehow I remember sitting talking to Josh one night, speaking of Fenton, in Grand Forks. It was like a balmy 25 below, I think, when we got out of the rink. And I'm like, why can't we merge the conferences, man? Like, I know it's over money. I get all that. But how sick would that be if those two conferences, and it give them 16 teams? You just let them play as conferences and somehow just play everybody. Screw it. Play the big boys. They do it in football now.
Well, if you guys want, if you want to hear another really crazy off the wall idea that I heard this week, and there's nothing to it.
Can I get a cigarette first?
Go for it, Benny.
I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
This is just like the pod days, Benny. Late at night, we're sitting in Jake Grant's room.
I'll kick him out for a second. Let's hear it.
Late night dart for Benny. I love it.
Yeah, during the NCHC pod, there was only media in this hotel. No one was in hotels at the time traveling. And Jake Brandt, who did TV with Benny for the show, he would have his room, and if he left the thing in the door, it meant the room was open. And that night we would go in, we would sit in each of our corners of the room, because nobody wanted to be the one that was going to bring down the pod. And we would sit there and chat every night about the hockey we watched. It was just a wonderful time. Watch 3 hockey games and then sit in Jake's room and chat for an hour and then go to bed and do it again. But someone brought up, this was more of a, should this happen rather than there's any discussion on it? Should college hockey be part of the NCAA, or should it pull out and form its own governing body, like College Hockey Inc.?
That's interesting. I see Ben coming back, so let's get him part of this.
I've been listening. I heard him.
Yeah,
I think they should.
I would have to think long and hard about all the different possible ramifications of it, but I was like, that's an interesting idea, as the NCAA is kind of blowing up right now. And with college hockey having, so many different types of schools, you have the D3s, you have the D2s, you have the FCSs, you have the FBS group of fives, you have the FBS Power Fives, all in college hockey. And they're all kind of under different setups right now. And someone said, should they actually just pull out of the NCAA and have like College Hockey Inc. govern them, or USA Hockey or something else? I was like, that's an interesting thought. I'd have to think about that. So
I think it all depends on where football goes. I mean, football is half in and half out right now.
Yeah.
They still follow NCAA rules, but none of their playoffs have anything to do with NCAA. So is it kind of see where that goes, Viggs?
Well, I think when you hear who's talking about the roster limits in NCAA sports, and when you have them trying to decide what's an appropriate roster for college hockey, I don't think they have any idea how a college hockey game runs. I don't think they understand how many players dress for a game. I don't think they understand how important goalies are and how it's hard to even practice if you have 3 goalies and 2 of them get hurt.
Yep.
It's hard to run a practice.
Yep.
Like I remember the Gophers last year. They had Potter putting on the pads for a D1 practice. And when he's like, I'm not doing that again because I don't want to have these 100-mile-an-hour shots from Jimmy Snuggerud coming at me, they put up like the shooter tutor. And here you have like a top 10 team in college hockey, and they can't even practice their power play against a real goalie, so they're going up against a shooter tutor. Like, what kind of quality practice and development is that for a student athlete? It's just ridiculous because they can't have like the club team goalie just come in and practice under these new rules. They can't just bring in an e-bug for practice. They have to stick with the shooter tutor. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you have these people that are putting these roster limits into college hockey, and they have no concept of it. They think it's like basketball where you have a starting 5, and then because you dress 20, they've got 15 people just sitting around watching. That's not how college hockey works. You need to have 20 guys dressed for a game.
Yeah.
Spot on. And when you look at what's happening in North Dakota has a club guy now because one of their goalies went out for the season. Duluth had a point where they were down to 1. AIC went down to 0 for a little bit. They had to cancel the game.
That's right. Yeah.
But
when we were up in Grand Forks last year, Matt Bryant added to the Minnesota roster because they didn't have enough goalies to practice.
Yeah. Yeah. It happens quite a bit, actually, more than you would think. And
Or if you just have one goalie and you want to give him a practice off, and now you don't have a goalie for practice that you normally have, these are D1 hockey players who are aspiring to play pro hockey. This isn't like a squirt team where you can just put out the pond hockey goals.
We're talking about, kind of health and safety stuff. Like, let your goalies take a spell in practice. Like this helps. I don't know. 26 isn't the right number. You have to have the flexibility. You can go with 26, but you have to have the flexibility in case something goes awry.
You have to be able to like active and inactive people on that 26 somehow, so you can overcome injury issues. And that's not the way it's being written by these people who have no idea what college hockey is or how it operates. Also add that to my candidacy, Ben. Okay.
It's noted,
speak of me well.
Noted. It's noted. You're my guy, man. You're my guy for the job.
Oh, boy.
You and Schloss. Make it happen.
Yeah, just Jared Ribedo from the Bemidji Pioneers watching too. And he's threw out the idea of having multi-game series also in tournaments like the CCHA. So your best team is most likely to make the tournament and maybe make some noise.
Less upsets, typically.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well,
especially for a league like the Big Ten where you have a team that's on a bye and potentially could have a bye going into last week.
Happens
have a
every
bye
year.
In the first round of the playoffs, loses that first game, has to sit the next weekend, and then has to get ready for a game.
It's hard.
That's
After
not a
playing
great
one
way to find
game
it.
in like 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
hard.
in front of 100 people, just catastrophizing now. But I think people like Bob would just be like, let's play more games at the end of the year when it matters.
Yeah.
Well,
all these players,
they're always going to come back and say the season's long enough as it is.
But all these games, October to March, are hard for some of these teams at the top of college hockey because it's like, I want to get to the playoffs. You can even tell around Minnesota players, like winning the Big Ten, yeah, it's nice. Being number one seed is nice. But what they want, Jimmy Snuggerud wants, is to win the NCAA title in St. Louis and play for the Blues the next night. That's what he wants. But he's got to do so much to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think like one of the things that's in the mind of the coaches, especially when they do the conference tournaments, like I remember one year, Nodak played a 3-game series in the first round. They get into the final 5. They play Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They won the final 5, but they just played 6 intense games in how many days, and then they're in the NCAA tournament. They lose. So I think they're cautious of the wear and tear of playing a lot of games, potential for guys to get injured at the end of the year. But that was one thing the NCHC cited when they are going to 1-game sets like the Big Ten is doing. And they said, we want to have more rest for the, healthier players for the NCAA tournament. And I'm like, is your league having trouble in the NCAA tournament right now?
Nah.
You're going this direction of leagues that haven't won the NCAA tournament. So I was like, I'm not sure this is something I would tout, because the leagues that have won it are leagues that have done the 2 games in the championship weekend. Generally,
I would at least like to see for Big Ten. How about semifinals at least? Best 2 out of 3 leagues.
Yeah,
I'm all for best 2 out of 3 all the way through the end of the year. I think the one thing with leagues is when they have the play-in game on like the Thursday, and so you've played an extra game than the teams that are waiting on Friday and Saturday. Yeah. That's where I think the coaches get frustrated. But I think if everybody's playing 3-game series, everybody's got the same rules, and you have all these people that talk about how major junior play is 70 games. How many games do you play in college? Maybe max 45 right
40,
now.
Yeah,
30, 44. Yeah.
If you go all the way and you get the extra exhibitions, maybe 45. These kids can handle another 20 games on their agenda. I think, with college hockey players, it's sometimes the mental fatigue more than the physical fatigue. So, but more games at the end of the year, I think is fine. Obviously, the NCHC had a good thing going.
True.
We'll find out what happens when they go next year. When they go there, does it change? I'm not sure if I think that's the reason they've had success in the tournament. I think they've had good teams, and sometimes one and done. You hit a post and it goes in, or hit a post and it goes out, and that can decide a game. So
yeah, you're not wrong there. There's a lot of luck sometimes.
It's
just the way it bounces. And
Jack Nicklaus has the fun saying that golf is more luck than we'd like to think, especially when it comes to putting.
That's very true.
And it's just like, how mentally strong are you usually is the difference, because you don't think about the bad stuff. Like Jack Nicklaus once said, I've never 3-putted on the back 9 at Augusta. And a reporter is like, no, I've got all these examples. He's like, no, it's never happened. It's never happened.
Wow.
Like, he's just like that mentally strong person who's just like, I don't do that. It's like, I've been through it and I'm confident. And I think, one of the things David Carl talks about in the NCHC is like, we play a tough schedule. Every game's tough. There's no nights off, and that prepares us for the end of the year. I know we talked about that with him at the NCHC Media Day, Brad. It is a little bit different.
Yeah, but I don't think the Big Ten's that different in that respect, right? Like,
no.
I do think the Big Ten sometimes the games can be looser.
Yeah,
than what I see in the NCHC.
Yeah.
I think there's more talented. I don't know if it's more talent, but it's a different mindset than the NCHC.
Yeah,
the coaches in the NCHC are more team first. Big Ten, a lot of coaches are a lot of development. especially like Narado, Motzko. Like they are Nightingale. Like they're trying to develop their talent throughout the year. They're not necessarily trying to lock things down. Mike Hastings kind of changes that a little bit at Wisconsin, but it's a different mindset, I think, in the two leagues.
It is a different style.
Ben, what do you see with like Michigan State under Nightingale and their style?
Well, I will say first, I mean, I think top to bottom, there is more skill in the Big Ten. There's some damn skilled players in the NCH, you don't get me wrong, but I think top to bottom, there's more skill. As far as State goes, they're just hard to play against. They got 4 layers. All 4 lines are good. And their D isn't going to wow you, but they're solid, and they pack the house. I think, Gucciardi's become a really good defensive guy. The Geary kid is unbelievable. O'Doyle Rules is the kid's nickname. I guess he and I had to, because it's Sandler, I had to inquire this week. So Jared DeMichael, great dude, unbelievable guy. He's a big movie buff. So him and I have a lot in common there, quoting stupid movie lines, right? So he's just telling us about Geary, and he's like, yeah, O'Doyle Rules. So I asked him this week, I said, so where did that come from? He said, I got scratched in a game my freshman year. They put me back in the next night. We played Ohio State. I literally went into the corner and knocked two guys down. And one of them got up and looked at him and said, O'Doyle Rules. Because it was such a badass play, right? Because he took out 2 dudes.
That's hilarious.
So that'll come in if he makes a big hit Saturday. But and lastly on him, and then to answer your question, so I asked him who he likes to watch. That's one thing I like to ask players. Who do you watch at the next level? Like, who are your guys? So his answer was Ryan Lindgren, because Nightingale feels he's that kind of player. So another Minnesota tie, right? So, which I think Ryan Lindgren's a hell of a pro. He's tough as nails and just does it all. And that's what this kid is. But their style, Viggs, is, again, they just come at you. They get better as the game goes. The whole Will Morlock thing from the USA development program they brought in, it works. I mean, I had him against Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, a month ago, earlier this month. And they were down 3-1 and came back and won 4-3 and made it look pretty easy. Wisconsin could not stop them. As much as Minnesota comes with their speed, State's got a fair share of speed too. I'm not going to say they're faster than Minnesota. I don't think anyone is. But they just keep coming, man. They come and they come and they come, and they just get pucks in, and they're smart, and they don't beat themselves. Plain and simple.
There you go.
I was just thinking about my favorite Ryan Lindgren moment is probably his freshman year. They're playing North Dakota at Mariucci, and he gets in a scrum early in the game, goes right after the North Dakota captain and gets right in his face. I think they got coincidentals, and he just kind of set the tone for the weekend. He's like, I've been waiting my entire life to play in this game, and I can't wait to make my mark. And I'm going to go after the biggest, toughest North Dakota guy I can find and get after him just to make a statement.
So what years was it? What year would that have been?
That was 2016. It was 16-17 because they had not played the previous 2 or 3 years. And I remember the big thing was the name. Do they have animosity? Do they not? Is it normal? Did these guys never played each other? And then all of a sudden that happened right away. We're like, yeah. Still there. I think
so. You take a bunch of guys from Minnesota, Massachusetts, see what happens.
Yeah, this ought to be fun. So it was the year after the Natty, then, Schmaltz.
Yeah. So it was Lindgren and Osmus were going at it right away, and you're like, okay, well, the rivalry is not left whatsoever. That took 2 minutes or whatever it was.
Nice.
But yeah, that was funny.
I wonder if Osmus has ever talked about that on his pod, about what he thought when Lindgren came after him.
Little punk freshman.
Yeah, a little punk
freshman.
freshman.
He was smiling from ear to ear, knowing him this is what he grew up in East Grand Forks. He was a senior. I don't know if he had gotten to play in the Minnesota-North Dakota rivalry, and it's his first time. I'm thinking he was like, hey, this is wonderful. This is what I signed up for. I think both guys were probably absolutely loving it.
Well, I'm looking forward to coming up there again this fall, Schloss. The staff up there treats us so well. We were so appreciative of them when we were up there a couple seasons ago. It was a blast. I'm not sure if we'll do another podcast from the Ralph, but we did that. Man. We did it live from the Ralph, and
it's risky business.
It was, but well, it was empty. The arena was empty, but
they treat us well and they locked up the liquor, so it was probably a safety.
Until after the show, then we found the liquor.
There's plenty in that barn.
Well, we went to an establishment, and it wasn't
one of these days. We got to get to Munn, Jube. We got to get out there.
I can't believe Micheletti's never been to Munn.
Yeah, that's wild.
That was.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
Just his timing in the 80s when he played, and then
different conference.
He has never done road radio until this year.
He's a star, the legend.
So
mural cred.
I think he said Yost too. I hadn't been to Yost.
No.
Which just baffles.
Well, yeah, it would have been the same. They were both the CCHA.
Yep. Wow. And it was long. It was 6-10 years before the College Hockey Showcase too. So
can I tell you guys a quick story about Pat?
Yeah.
So this involves going to North Dakota, and so we had talked a lot. We'd become friends, just like on social media and stuff, and respect for each other and all that. And so I get put on a game with him, CBS game. It was Omaha at North Dakota. And so we meet up at MSP, and my gal came with me. So we get on the little, 40-seater or 50-seater to go up to the Forks. And we're sitting in like row 2, and he's in the back, and he goes, "Hey, here's a little reading material." And he tosses me the Gopher media guide. It was a hell of a weekend. My girlfriend came with me. We go to the Ralph for a game, drive to St. Cloud, do Minnesota St. Cloud the next night. So it was a good weekend, good hockey weekend, right? So he throws me the media guide, and he goes, "Hey, if you want to do a little more reading for tomorrow, here's the media guide." And I go, "Oh, cool, thanks." So I go through it. It's about 40 minutes on the plane. I get in the back for the all-time leading scorers. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy sandbagged me. I'm like 260 points or whatever he got. I'm like, holy shit. He comes up and he's grinning, and I'm holding the media guide and waiting to get off. And I go, "You're a sandbagger." And I toss him the media guide. That was like the first time I really met Pat.
Oh. Ben, did you see how many penalty minutes that Pat had as well?
Oh, yes.
I did. Doesn't he lead in that?
I think he's like second in penalties and second in scoring.
Yeah, he got his money's worth. Pat. Yeah, I think he was a little ball of hate way back when.
He used to joke that sometimes he wouldn't listen to the coach saying, "Hey, once you got out of the box, come to the bench," because he'd want to get on the ice and score a goal so he wouldn't get yelled at when he got back.
That's hilarious.
Such a team guy, man.
Team first guy. All the way.
Right?
Yep.
Oh,
that's
man.
awesome.
Oh, man. Let's see if I can find it here. Pat is third. Pat is third with 403 minutes. DeMarkey leads 473. Chris McAlpine at 453. So he's third.
So points-wise, I know he's second. Who's first? And was Pat like 260, I want to say?
Well, that's John Mayasich at 298.
Okay, what'd Pat have?
269.
There you go. That's insane.
Different era. It just is.
It's just insane to see a guy have that many points and that many penalty minutes.
Yeah,
I know, right? That's impressive.
And then if you ever stand next to Pat, you're just like, how in the heck did you do both of those things? What the heck?
Nails,
how are you
baby,
still
nails.
walking? Yeah. Tough Hibbing guy. Tough Hibbing guy.
That's impressive, man. Yep. Pride of Hibbing.
You could tell he grew up with older brothers and he didn't take any flack from anyone.
No, he got beat on a lot.
Yeah, he's number 2 for all-time goals, to 120. To Mayasich is 144. Millen is 1 goal behind at 119.
Wow.
The Iron Rangers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mayasich, Micheletti, Millen, who was a Bloomington kid. for goals. But points, yeah, it's Mayasich, Micheletti, Millen, Butsy Erickson, Larry Olam, Bonin, Ulseth, Har, Johnny Pohl, and Dick Doherty. Those are your top 10.
Where is John a blank? Who's the guy third? Who's three?
I'm sorry.
Corey Millen. Yeah, where's
Corey
Millen
Millen
from? Where's he from?
Cloquet? Is he a Cloquet
I
guy?
thought it was Northern.
I'm embarrassed if I'm wrong, but I think it's Cloquet, right?
I think you're right. Yeah. I should know that. I collected cards as a kid, but no, I knew he's a Minnesota guy. I just don't know where he's from.
Yeah, Cloquet.
There you go.
But I just want to, tell Andrew Carlson, if you put Iginla and Pat Micheletti next to each other, those are two different body types. I'm just saying Pat the Rat is, maybe a phrase that was come up by his competitors, but Pat's a tough little guy.
Oh, yeah.
But in college hockey, you could get away with being tiny.
See, when you become commissioner, we can get fighting back into college hockey.
Oh.
You don't want
I don't know about that.
No? Did I open up a bad can?
Not with Viggs and I, commissioners.
Yeah, it's tough because I still believe
fighting?
They're amateur players.
Can we get half? But they're getting paid. Can we get half shields at least? No cage?
Insurance.
That would help too, because then you get to see the face a little bit more, right?
I might be more in favor of half shields than fighting, but
I'll work with you on this.
Yeah.
Oh, you're already butting with the future.
But college hockey, but
I just threw an idea out. He wasn't keen on it, so we'll diplomatically work it out. We'll find a compromise.
I'm all about compromise.
Cool.
Dude, it is after 1 a.m. where you are, isn't it, Ben?
Oh, yeah, it's 1:10.
We need to go to bed, guys.
Probably be a good idea.
Yeah. Cool.
Ben, awesome that you could join us for OT. Brad,
Awesome
thanks for
having me.
the text shout out.
And that text and that link is always good. So if you want to rebut anything we're saying during the live broadcast, just jump right on.
I'll be waiting. I'll be lurking, guys.
He's in the green room hanging out, man. He's ready to go when you need him. I'm the same way, man. I'm happy to anytime. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Well, I'm glad you came on. So good night, everyone.
Have fun, guys.
Later.
You too, Schloss.
You got these scoops. No scoops.
Well, there's this one thing that Pat was telling me this week. He said, "Hey, Viggs, if you know anything,